That was the funny thing,
That's it.
which you also just looked. Yeah, that was literally you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's really funny you mentioned that, actually, because obviously I do a lot of my work with social anxiety clients, and like they will do that all the time. Like for remote sessions, they'll
just get
literally like
lower and
they'll be like
lower.
this. Yeah, they'll just be like off screen and just like this, and I'll be like, it's obviously it's part of the problem that we work on, but because they
Yeah.
think that's taking attention off them, but it's putting more attention on you. Actually, it's having
Yeah.
the opposite
Yeah. To
effect.
just
But I can
appear
understand why you'd
normal.
want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah, for
funny.
sure. All right, cool. I think everything is green and looking good. So, um, yeah,
All right, well let's just do
let's
it.
start
Let's
this bitch. We can play some Monster Hunter. Not that I don't want to be here,
hell yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to episode 148 of the Quick Resume podcast. We are we are we've got to be your favorite bootleg Xbox podcast going. If you're
Mhm.
joining us tonight because the most popular Xbox podcast is cancelled, I know that they are. Welcome.
Is that what you planned
I'm
in for
sure.
tonight? You sneaky little.
No, it's the guys over at Xbox Two. And they just came up on my feed. They've cancelled today, so to be fair, people will
Cha-ching!
probably see our thumbnail and then say, "Oh God, I'd rather just not have an Xbox podcast at all." So,
Oh
there we
god,
go.
you didn't make another AI
Um,
thumbnail, did you?
no, I didn't. No, I did. I did it the hard way this time.
Oh
Which was
wow.
great because I had a slightly easier week than last week, which I'm really glad I did. I had loads of cancellations at work because it's half term, which I needed that because last week was really hard, work wise.
Nice.
But we've been a bit on and off, haven't we, Tim, for like the last like 2
Month.
months now.
Mm,
We've had multiple difficulties like lining up schedules, and you've been a busy little bee. So
mm.
why don't we have like a quick check-in before we get into what we've been playing and then onto some of the news that we've had. Really just for this week. I've done my best to distill the news down and not talk about the last 4 weeks, but enough has happened literally just this week to fill an episode. So Tim, how's it going, buddy? What's happening?
Yeah, not bad. Like you said, obviously busy bee the last month especially. Yeah, just a lot going on. I went to I'm pretty sure I also talked about this because I think we had one episode where I was back and then I went again. So obviously I think I spoke about it on our last episode, but I went to Florida, Orlando for a couple of weeks. That was great. I won't go into too more detail because, like I said, I have mentioned it, but that was the 2 weeks at the beginning of October, and then I was back for a week, and then I went straight into my brother's wedding, which was in Lanzarote. So that was a long weekend spent over there. So that was hectic. It wasn't ideal. Like the things I had to do, but it was fun. I did have a good time. It was definitely a very unique experience. It was very, like I said, like an Indian themed wedding. So very, I mean, the ceremony itself, of them like getting married lasted like an hour 45,
Mhm.
which is kind of crazy. Um, and then obviously the day before that was the whole day with all the, I can never say it, choreographed dances,
Choreographed, you got it. Mhm.
um, and stuff like that. I think there was like 11 dances total. I did three. And yeah, obviously I was very anxious about all of that, but it all went very
Mm.
good. Only fell off stage twice. Um, no, I was
Only
kidding.
split my head open in two separate places. It's all good.
Yeah, but like it definitely when I got there, it was like an outdoor thing with like tables and everything, and it was like a proper like elevated stage with like lights and stuff like that. And I was like, oh no, or like
Oh
that
wow, that's
sinking
not good.
feeling, get those popo
Oh yeah.
tongues.
All
um,
right, yeah.
but yeah, so but it was fun in the end, I guess. The dancing I was never like crazy worried about. I was much more anxious about the speech because like that to me is way more scary because you're just kind of up there and like you're not with like a bunch of people. It's just you and my brother.
Yeah.
trying to make a speech, and you're like, oh, will people laugh, or crickets, all that sort of stuff. And I'm just terrible with just public speaking, so I was like proper like
And did
shaking,
that
like.
happen? Were there crickets? Did you not?
No, I mean, luckily
No.
Ben's quite charismatic, so he did kind of take the lead on it. Like, he definitely had like probably like a 60-40, 70-30 split on the speech, but that's because I was just incredibly uncomfortable with it. But no, like, even like the little bits I came in with, because it was like a bit of back and forth between me and Ben, there was definitely laughs, and everyone said it was a great speech, and Dom and Rash loved it and everything. So that's the
There we
main
go.
thing.
Perfect.
But yeah, it was just super, like, I'm just glad the monkey's off my back with that sort of thing, because I'm just not good. Like, I'm not even that great in just normal social scenarios, let alone something as elevated as that. But yeah, so that's been stressing me out for a
Well,
while.
well
And
done.
thank you.
Go you.
Thank
If
you.
nobody
Thank you.
said it to you, well done. Go you.
No, they did. I've had it so much. Yeah,
God,
legit.
you
Everyone
suck.
was saying how proud of me they are and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it was yeah, it's just good to get off my back. But yeah, so that was a busy time, and then yeah, just straight back into work this week, and such a fucking busy week, dude. I'm so tired. It was such
Yeah,
a
I can't
busy
believe you
week.
do that. I have a strict rule that if I do something,
I
if we do something as a
would,
family, I need an extra day. I need a cool down. I need a buffer day.
yeah,
You
no,
know?
for sure. I'm absolutely all about that, and I normally do that, but I do not have any holidays left. And my holidays
That's rough.
April to
That's
April,
rough.
so I have 2 days between now and the end of April next year.
Mm.
And obviously I've got Christmas off and stuff like that. Like, that's
Yeah.
pre-booked. But
You have
like,
like the Christmas period booked. Yeah, you have
yeah,
like
yeah, I have
a
like
stretch
2 weeks
period.
off over
Yeah.
Christmas. Yeah, but like
That's not too bad then.
after that, I'm just like, dude, I just no time off for like over
I
4
suppose you
months.
want Monster Hunter days, don't you? You probably use those days for Monster Hunter. So.
Yeah, that's my thinking. Yeah, because when is Monster Hunter's a May release 2025, isn't it?
No,
Is it not
February.
February? Oh wow, I didn't realize it was
Yeah,
that early. Damn.
yeah. It's that, and then Assassin's Creed and Avowed in a week.
February. Am I right?
February.
But yeah.
Who put that R in there? What were you fucking thinking?
Yeah, I know.
What were you
It's just
thinking?
they just
You're
did
trying to
it. It's
spell
just
February.
chaos, like absolute chaos.
February.
Um, but yeah, so that's been me on a sort of social standpoint, and then gaming kind of just it's been quite slow, obviously. But I've been playing like Metaphor here and there. Still loving that game. Still fantastic. Having a great time with it. You're probably way further than me. I just reached the. I won't do any spoilers just in case you're not, but I'd be very surprised if you weren't. I've just met Heisme, so that's where I am.
I'm a bit further, but not massively so. Like I haven't completed the next main dungeon after
Okay,
that, I don't think.
okay. And may I just say that Heisme is peak. He is peak character. He's so good. I
God
love
tier.
him.
He's a god tier character. He's like when I saw him, I was like, he's a rabbit, he's a bat, he's definitely a bat. But
He's
I
a
just
bat,
that was like,
yeah.
yeah. And then I was just like, I love this guy, and
It's
his
like
voice is
fucking
great.
League of
Big fan of
Shadows.
Heisman.
Batman is insane.
Incredible.
He quite
Yeah,
literally is
incredible.
Batman, like, because he's actually a bat. So
The whole quest line that you're about to go on is like super good, really good.
I'm
It's like
excited.
really
Yeah.
comparable. It's not a spoiler, I don't think, but it's really comparable to um like the do you remember the Bloody Baron quest line in Witcher 3?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was one of the first ones. Yeah,
It's like similar like thematically to that.
yeah.
It's
Okay. So have like
it's really
some
good.
twists in there,
It's
some
just quite
corruption
dark.
and like the family and
Yeah.
like the military or
It's
something.
dark.
Okay.
There's some corruption. It's just really good. I really enjoyed that whole stretch with Heisme.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Do you
I'm
think
kind
his
of buzzing.
archetype looks a bit weird? Why does he got like he's like a mosquito? He's
His
got like a
what?
big blood sac. His archetype.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. I've literally
Okay,
just
good.
I've
Fine.
literally
You
just
see
got
what I
to the
mean?
point where like he's like tied up on the Gauntlet Runner at the moment, and we're like deciding whether or
Okay.
not we trust him or not. But I've like met him, fought him, and done all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah,
You'll see what I mean. Though.
okay, all right. But yeah, no. Apart from that, I think I played around the zombies with you. Oh, actually, quick shout out. Whacking says he lives in Orlando. Bruh,
Yeah,
you should have hit me up.
dude. Yeah, that'd have been great.
How far are
You
you
could have
from?
seen his social incompetence for real.
Yeah,
joking,
yeah, for
joking.
real. I mean,
It was fine.
we did Disney World, by the way, Joaquin,
Yeah.
for like 2 weeks. So we just did like all the parks and everything like that. I don't know how far away that is from you. I know
So
that
you
is
worked
pretty
there,
much
Joaquin?
all of Orlando, but
He like pulls off like Boba Fett, like pulls off the
yeah,
mask. Like, yo,
it's
is that is
me.
Tim from the Quick
Yeah,
Resume podcast?
bruh. Yeah. Um,
Still haven't cut your hair or something. He would say something like that, wouldn't
yeah, he would. Yeah, yeah. But my hair was less messy then, so yeah. Jokes on you. You catch the end of a work day, Tim. Hair like this is me when I've got my fucking palms, my face, and my hands, and yeah. So, but yeah, that's been me on everything. I think so. Yeah, on to you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I mean, let's just go off what we were talking about with zombies. Really, I mean, it's obviously been a big week. We've got a lot to talk about for COD this week. You know, really interesting stuff happening there. But as we've
Oh,
expressed before, if you follow us, you know, the thing that we're probably most interested by
just before
COD
you,
being on
I don't want to
Game
interrupt.
Pass.
Wackiness said you're quite low. Have you adjusted your volume
Okay.
at all?
I haven't changed anything
Have
on
you
my end.
accidentally tried whacking it up a bit? I don't know. I can
Let me
whack you
just.
up a bit at my end, but that's a bit scary because I've never changed that setting. So
Yeah, I am quite low actually. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Turn me up.
So you want me to turn you up? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? So advanced audio, and then I
I'll
do
quickly
audio
check.
input capture volume. Well, I'll raise you by like 2% because I have you quite low anyway. So
I'd
I
give
don't
it a
know.
bit more than that. Maybe give it 5 or 10.
You sure? That's
So
quite a
I'm quite
jump.
quiet. Yeah.
It's like a
Okay.
33% increase. Okay. All
Wa-
right.
Joaquin will tell us
Yeah. Okay.
if it's
Cool.
too
Yeah.
much.
All right. You're up again. So carry on where you left off.
Okay. Cool. So we were interested in zombies with it being on Game Pass, and we've played.
Mm.
I mean, we've just had one round together, haven't we? I played a couple of rounds with some other friends. Have you since we played together, or did you do something else?
No, no, no. I've literally just played that one round of zombies with you. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and I think it's pretty great. You know, I haven't played zombies in a long time. I couldn't even tell you. Maybe It must be Black Ops 3 because we were having that conversation about
The
the Easter
staffs.
eggs, and it was that snowy map. And I remember because I saw actually it came up on my feed on Twitter, yeah, with the staffs, but there are the giant robots like walking overhead.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. Like that
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
ambience
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that. They were like
That was
giant,
really
and I'd
cool.
totally forgotten
Yeah.
that bit. Yeah, that was like probably my favorite map ever. Like there were some really cool ones, like the OG ones, um, which I'm blanking on the names of, but yeah, even some of the old stuff was really cool. But that was probably my favorite one ever. And I think this feels good. Are you going to adjust me a little bit more?
I have. Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry. Carry on.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, just keep micro adjusting.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I mean, this feels good, man. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm not a super good point of reference when we're talking about like how good zombies is. I know they
Mm,
changed it away from round based, didn't they? And a lot of people didn't like that.
mm,
So, but I never played that. So to me, this just feels like what I had played years and years ago. And I was a bit concerned, like, I don't know, is 30-year-old me going to enjoy this in the same way that like 16-year-old me enjoyed it?
mm,
And you know, I'm happy to report that mostly the answer is yes. Like it's just, and that is just for the most part because everything in the game it just feels good. Like it feels good to shoot zombies. There's like no, like they've added like lots of extra progression layers on top of
lots.
what they used to do in the old days. You know, I know they've got like the gobble gum. I know that's not new. But then they've got like, you know, loadouts for your class. And maybe a lot of this isn't new either. I guess I don't really know. But and then there's like skill trees for the perks.
Mm,
And what else is it for? For the alts that you get as well, or they call it field
mm.
equipment or something. You can get like they're like skill trees which you can level up. Which is all nice stuff. So overall, and I think the two maps are pretty good actually. If I had to criticize anything, it would be that I think the maps are a little on the boring side. Like one of them is just a town. The one we did was pretty cool actually. The one on the
With the
island. It
bow.
was like
Yeah. Yeah.
with the bow. I think that was pretty cool, but like it still there wasn't anything like
There could be more.
that
They
makes
could.
it stands out.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
could definitely drive it more like fantasy, right? Like there's no limits. Like
Yeah.
you like what they
Yeah.
did. Like we were describing. You could quite literally just have an alternate timeline in like World War II where there's like giant robots walking around and you're in like trenches and shit. Like that was just
Yeah,
chaotic, but it was cool.
and yeah, and I would understand if they wanted to make it feel more grounded, but then there's a like it's not just traditional zombies in that sense. Like, the dog rounds are like bugs. They're like big spooky bugs.
Yeah.
And then there's like giant mech guys who come and get you. And then there's on the other map, Tim, that you haven't played, there's like Cerberus dogs come as well
Oh,
in place
nice. Three-headed dogs.
of yeah, 3D like robot dogs. So it's like it's clearly not they're not going for like a grounded thing, are they?
Hmm.
Um, so that'd be probably my only criticism. Other than that, I could see why people would really like this. I saw that IGN gave their zombie. Oh my god!
Oh, that was hilarious. Oh my god, he just disconnects. I'm assuming Deck knocked out
Help!
his
Help!
internet cable.
No!
You're back. You're
Yeah.
half back. There you go. That was hilarious
Yeah.
because you were
I
literally just
s-
like, "Oh my god!" and you looked over to the left, and then you just cut out, just completely.
I smacked my Mac while I was talking, and it knocked the
Yeah,
USB thing out.
yeah,
What was I saying? IGN gave their review of Zombies, and they gave it an 8, which I think probably feels about fair. So I guess what
yeah.
I'm trying to say is, it feels like the sentiment for Zombies and the overall game, which is part of what we'll get into, is quite good. And so yeah, I've really enjoyed playing it, Tim. Like, have you what any thoughts or opinions on what we played so far?
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm very much in the same camp. I didn't think it was like mind blowing and as good as we love zombies back in the day, but then that's a tall ask. I don't think it's ever going to be like that. We were just different people back then,
Yeah,
different smoother brains.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, but I think overall, I think they've done a pretty good job on it. Like you said, it feels quite satisfying to just shoot everything, and um, I will say that the maps tad boring. Not a big fan of the bugs. Like they're not really that fun. They're not really that like
Mm.
satisfying to shoot. And I never really felt under threat in a bug round either. I felt like they never even really came close to ever killing me. So
They
like they're
they
kind of
were a
just there.
nuisance. I think they're designed to be a bit of a nuisance, and I did
Yeah.
find myself like when I was like training, I think they're there to be like have you to stop training, like, and I found myself like having to,
Hmm.
you know, aim off the heads of the train to the
Yeah.
bug and then back, which I think is what they're meant for. And actually, I can see how that was enriching to the loop, but I do agree with you that something felt kind of like they're just an okay kind of nuisance. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there could have been something maybe a
Mm.
bit better there, but I can see why it's there. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's partly I it kind of bugs me a little bit more. Get it?
Hey.
Because my favorite zombie map was probably Shinonuma, which was the
Yeah, the jungle swamp
yeah, the
one.
jungle swamp one, and they introduced like the dog rounds for the first time, and I remember the dog rounds were
Yeah.
like shit scary, man. Like, and they were actually kind of difficult as well. So I just really
Definitely.
liked that map, how it all joined from like the outside. You had the traps on the outside. You remember the flingers? You should just whack the zombies. It's just like
Yeah.
fucking sling them
Yeah.
down.
It's definitely a top three for me. Numa is definitely
Yeah,
a top three. 'Cause I think that was when they first introduced the characters and the Wonder
yeah,
Waff as well.
yeah. It's the
And I
Wonder
think the
Waff. Yeah,
Easter eggs started coming in. So that was really like a big jump, I think, when Treyarch first introduced
yeah.
that map.
Yeah, Shinonuma was probably my all time favorite. But yeah, and but I think overall, yeah, it's a good experience. Like I can see myself going back on and playing it. Like I could see playing around tonight,
It's
maybe
fun.
after we do a bit of Monson. So like it's good fun. I do wish there were some things in there, but it's great that you can now save your progress in like a single player game and stuff like that. But I think it would have been really cool if they could have done that of like being able to do it similar to like how like a Minecraft server is kind of hosted and stuff like that, and then
Mhm.
the host can start it back up and people can flood back in where you left off. But I understand maybe that's really difficult
Yeah.
to do. So, but like that would have been like so cool because it does still take like a
Everybody
few
needs to
hours.
consult. Yeah, everybody needs to consult Obsidian on their tech for their shared world for Ungrounded. Like that, save the
Yeah.
guys at Undead Labs are doing it for State of Decay, aren't they? And I think there's another big studio who had been collaborating with them as well.
Mhm.
But Yeah, I quite like the idea of like a massive behemoth like Activision coming up to like the tiny, 150 person team at Obsidian and be like, show us how to do this.
Yeah, we need it. But yeah, for real. I mean, maybe that's something they can do, and maybe that's something they're planning on doing. Now they're under that
Yeah.
Xbox umbrella. But yeah, overall, no complaints really. But that's kind of my whole experience with COD. I haven't touched the multiplayer or anything like that or
Yeah.
campaign. So if we're going to dive into that briefly, I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, I haven't touched the campaign either. I will say, just as a quick segment, I have played a bit of the multiplayer, and you know what? I found myself playing it like a little bit here and there. It's just It's just good, man. I mean, am I going to play it forever? Probably not. Am I going to stick to it long term? Probably not. But it feels good. It's COD. As we've said that we haven't played that many CODs in a while. I think the last one I played was the Modern Warfare remake in like what was that 2020. And that felt good as well. So it feels pretty similar to that, but in a Black Ops, wrapper.
Mm.
And so there's other things in there that I never like, there's some of the new mechanics they've added over the years, like the quick sprint and that you can like my ears.
Sorry. It's always a really satisfying crack because it's a can of Guinness, so they're like
You
it's
should
like
have just
so much air comes out. It's like
yeah,
it's great.
seriously, yeah. I thought my eardrum just got punctured. I was mental.
Yeah, ASMR.
Um So yeah, it just feels good, man. It has this nice like casual feel to it. To be honest, it's like not super competitive. The loadout system is like mental. I don't know if it's been like this for every COD game. There's like 10 things you can adjust on each gun, loads of stuff to unlock as you go through. Um, yeah, it just feels like good casual fun. Like I've gone back for a game here and there rather than like sinking into like metaphor. It's like I've got 20 minutes free. I'll just play a quick game of COD. And so I think that's
Mm.
probably a good sign. The fact that it's good enough that someone like me is as jaded on COD that has come back for a couple of games here and there. As I say, I'm not probably won't stick to it forever and ever. I think I'd rather be playing Valorant in the long term, but it feels good. I mean, the thing that I have said to you guys that I will like give them big props for is how great it sounds across the board. That's the sound of Guinness hitting a glass. He's not having a piss on the stream.
I'm not.
Although he might be. Give it like 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. The game sounds great across the board. Like the sounds are so good. Visuals are obviously really good as well. So
Mm.
that's all I really had to say. I think they've clearly done a good job. A lot of people are really happy here, and we'll come back round to this in a news story a bit later about Black Ops and the performance on Game Pass and its performance in general, and sort of the cascading effects of that, I suppose, on maybe Xbox as a platform and maybe Game Pass as well. So yeah, that's all I have to
Mm.
say about that. And as far as anything else goes, metaphor. Um, I've been wanting to say this like all week, and I've been holding it in my mind. I haven't even tweeted it, and that's how you know that
Game
I've
of
really
the
been
year.
trying.
Game of the year.
I am me sinking down and playing Metaphor at the moment is really like the video game equivalent of snuggling into bed and pulling up a duvet up
It's
to
so
my
nice,
shoulders.
isn't it?
That's what it feels like. It's just
Yeah,
such a comfortable game for me to play right now.
yeah.
Across the music, the aesthetic, the companions, like the unraveling mystery and the direction of the story. Um, it's it's wonderful. It's doing a great job.
Yeah, they're
About
proper.
35 hours in.
They're proper like comfort games, aren't they? Like, I mean, I kind of even found that way with Persona 3 as well, and that's what I mean by like when I finished it, I was like, something missing here, man. Like, I just like to just sit back and like just play something, and like those games are just so perfect for that. Like, yeah, they really do just scratch an itch. Um,
Do you have any strong opinions on how the game looks?
I think it looks great personally, but I love that art style and like the aesthetic and stuff like that. Like I know a lot of people kind of bash it for its graphics, but I like it. Like I genuinely don't see it as being. I think it's artistic enough to pull it off in its wacky designs and the way it's like the outlines of all the characters and like the black outlines and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
it's clear they were going for like a storybook kind of feel, and that's like kind of right in line with a lot of the game and the fantasy novel, that's been carried around and all of that. I think that's very deliberate. I guess like my only hang up in a couple of areas is that there are times where I find like a really out of place texture where it's like because most of the game looks like a PS3 game running in 4K, and that's not necessarily like a bad thing. It's just that it's using a non-realist style,
Mm,
but it's rendered really well. But then occasionally I run across some like really low quality textures, and I'm like, is it what? I wonder what has happened there. And then there are some
mm.
other areas where, like in it's Grand, is it Grand Trad? Isn't
Grand
it the
Trad,
main
yeah.
city? Yeah, like where the hubs, like it's not like open zone or open region at all. Really, it's just like
Mm,
closed hubs that you
yeah.
fast travel between essentially. Um, the bits that are beyond the travel point, so beyond the invisible, are like not even. And I know that the
It's
argument is
just an
going to be that it
image.
was an artistic choice. It's like, yeah, like all the people are just stood there statically, and they're like grey boxes. Um,
Mm,
and then there was another area, which I guess has less to do with how the game looks, but more towards the point that I'm coming to. Like, there's an area in the game where there was like a side quest related to it, and it was on the outskirts of another big city. And I ended up going to it, and it had been brought up a few times as a important objective for this other character, which I won't spoil. Um, and it kept coming up as like, they sell some really rare stuff there, and also there might be this really rare thing there. So anyway, I go there, and they're talking to me, and it's just like on the map. Like the camera is just on the map. Like I'm not in anywhere. I'm not controlling the protagonist or anything like that. And then the shop screen just like comes up, and like again, the background is the map, and I'm like, oh, am I actually not going to get to visit this place? It's just kind of
mm.
a pseudo area. And then like I buy something, and then they say, blah 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 blah. By the way, you can have this, it looks like it's important to you, and then we leave. And they're like, I think so the point I'm trying to make is that I think like there are some areas in the game where it's quite clear that there was a real focus on being cost effective. Um,
Yes, yeah.
like occasionally to me, and for the most part, that really isn't a problem. For the most part, they've done really well for the size and the scale of the game. It's just that every now and again it pokes its head, and it's like a little bit immersion breaking, where I can tell some cost cutting has happened in
Mm,
this area. Like, why was that not a fully explorable village? I just think it's obviously not a big deal. It really isn't. But it's just
yeah.
how come I can explore there, but I can't explore there, and how come those are grey boxes in that area, but that doesn't happen in that area? I think
Mm,
you can just tell at times that they were really trying to be cost effective with their games, which is what like these Japanese devs do really well at because they don't focus on motion capture, hyper realistic devs, hyper realistic graphics. Um, but at times it does, you can tell, I guess, is what I'm
mm,
trying to say. And I think sometimes that does pull me out of the experience a little bit. It's really not a big deal. As I keep saying, I think the game's really, really great.
yeah.
But that's like my only takeaway. That's one of the only bad things I have to say. And it's only
Mm.
a slight, it's a bit of a nitpick, really. But yeah, I don't know if you felt that way or noticed that at all.
Yeah, I've noticed the stuff you talk about like the areas and stuff like that. You know, when you look at them before you transition into them and stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm quite happy with them to cut corners and be cost effective in those areas to then have to bulk out the story, spend more time on the story and the characters and the dialogue and stuff like that. Like really think about everything the characters say because God, that must take so much time to put all this dialogue together, and like the voice acting and stuff, and like you got to bear in mind like they weave in like properly like animated sequences as well in this game that looks so good. You know where it kind of just goes
I
into
wish there
like
were
an
more.
anime. Yeah,
That is so
yeah.
good.
It's the same with like when I played Persona 3 as well. When it happened, I was like, "Oh, let's fucking go!" And then it lasts like a minute, and it's just gone, and I'm like, "Ah." But like it's
Yeah.
yeah, when they
That's
weave
what I
in stuff
mean.
like that, that's the expensive stuff that I think
Yeah.
that might not be there, or it'd be there a lot less than it is if they spent more time in these other areas we're nitpicking. So
Mm.
I think it's a bit of
Yeah.
a tit
And
for
I
tat.
think it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And of course, like I think this is probably a thing that most devs have to work with. They have to figure out where they want to prioritize resources. They're not going to have infinite time and infinite budget to make things work. And they have made things work for the most part in a way which really is for the most part unobtrusive. But like that's another good example where it's like, how come this bit gets a cutscene, but that bit doesn't get a cutscene? Or like, how come this is
Mhm.
voiced, but that isn't voiced? Again, really not a huge deal. It's just that I occasionally the feeling creeps up that it's like there's a little bit of inconsistency here. I bet they must have just had it's like they had the full timeline of the game up and they've said like this bit priority, we flesh out
Yeah.
those bits as much as we can, then if we have time this bit, then if we have time this bit, and you can tell where they ran out, and
Where it
it's like
drops off.
those
Yeah.
bits aren't going to be voiced, those bits aren't going to have cutscenes, that area is not going to be a real area, simply because we're prioritizing our time on the bits which are the most important,
Yeah.
and that is because you could argue you should have made a smaller game to fit within the scope and make everything of the same quality bar. I don't necessarily think that. I'm just saying that that's the counter argument. It's just
Mm.
one of these things. It's the same. It's a similar argument to like what people were talking about with Starfield, wasn't it? Some people felt that they shouldn't have gone for something so big if they couldn't execute it well. I felt that even though the execution wasn't perfect, I'm glad they went for what they did
Yeah.
because it provided a different type of experience. Overall, I'm glad that they have gone for this big globe trotting adventure. I'm glad for that they went for the angle that they did.
Yeah.
But there's just a couple of silver linings that like creep their head from time to time. Really not a big deal. I think the game's great.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Plus, I just feel like Atlas and this game and Persona, all that sort of stuff. I feel like they do like JRPG bloat like really well. Like I like even the stuff that seems meaningless and stuff like that. I do quite enjoy. Like whether or not I do, because towards the end of Persona 3, I was skipping quite a lot of dialogue or fast forwarding it. That might happen here as well because there really is only just so much you can read, but yeah, no, for me, we'll see obviously how the experience goes and stuff like that, and whether or not I even beat it by the end of the year, to be brutally honest. It's that long a game and stuff like that, so we'll see, because there's a lot we're juggling at the moment. So yeah, I think it could be my game of the year. It could knock Rebirth off its pedestal, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's top three for me at the moment. I don't think there's much this game could get wrong from this point that would make me change my opinion. I've played a lot of games this year, but they haven't all been released this year. I would say my favorite game that I've played so far is Disco Elysium, but that's one of my probably favorite games ever. So it's a bit of a difficult comparison for games that have released this year. Definitely like a this.
Path
I
is it better
feeling
than
this is
Path
kind
of
of a
the
nine.
Goddess?
Yeah, I kind of think it's a three-way tie then between Path of the Goddess, Metaphor, and Hellblade 2. I'd initially felt Hellblade 2 was a little worse, but I kept finding myself coming back to it a little bit. And I think actually maybe I was a little bit too critical. So actually I think it's a three-way tie then. We'll see how it all shapes out by December for me personally. But those are all being like great games.
Mm,
And so happy for Metaphor to join the ranks, especially as it's a type of game I don't usually play really. So I'm glad I'm having such a good time with it.
nice, nice.
So, if you guys don't know who we are, and if that's the case, been under a rock or something, pretty big names in this field, you know,
God.
Tim and Deck, pretty big. You'll know that we are big Monster Hunter mega fans. It's really sad and it's a little bit embarrassing actually. Back in the 360, we had like a whole propaganda like set of paragraphs, didn't we? For like bring Monster Hunter to the West.
Hmm.
Um it was like a whole PSA sales pitch that we had to try and get the word out. Again, being the big names that we were and still are,
That's
and
why we
clearly
got
it
it.
was effective.
Yeah, that's why we got World. You're
Exactly.
welcome.
And it goes deeper. It goes back. We used to play Monster Hunter on the PSP together all the time.
Mm.
Back on the 3DS as it came to there. I had it on the Wii, and you'd come around and we'd play Try there as well, wouldn't
Hmm.
we? And
Hmm.
like we've got a long trotted out history with that franchise. It's somewhere in our DNA. I reckon. Honestly, if they sliced me open, I guess they would need to do that. If they
Yeah,
looked into my blood or my skin or whatever, wherever they would like to look, they would see a tiny little bow or maybe a charge blade
yeah.
just
I feel
nestled
like
in there.
I feel
In the
like if they dissected me or carved me, so to speak, they might
Yeah,
find a cuckoo beak.
yeah,
um,
a
yeah.
plate, a ruby. Um, so, you can imagine our absolute joy when we found out that Monster Hunter Wild is coming out in February. A little bit bummed out that it's coming so close to Avowed, to be honest, because I'm still quite excited for Avowed. So somehow I'm gonna have to make them both work. And there's an open beta coming out, and I've just got to have just a little bit of a rant, just a little bit. The open beta, Tim, you may have seen, came out like 2 or 3 days first on PlayStation,
Mhm.
um, and then has just come out today on Xbox and PC. Which is at least we're getting a beta this time, because for those who don't remember or maybe weren't privy to it, Monster Hunter World didn't have a beta on Xbox.
No.
Somehow, PlayStation had exclusive rights to the beta. And honestly, I've got to say that's one of the dumbest fucking
Yeah, it's
things.
a fucking beta. You're testing
A
their product
beta.
for them, and it's exclusive. Makes no sense.
And I know some people use the retort of beta these days is just demos anyway, no big deal. The game came out on Xbox far buggier than it did on PlayStation.
Mm.
You can't tell me there's not a bit of a coincidence going on there. We didn't test it on Xbox, and there were more bugs. You can't tell me that's not
Yeah, it's
it's
stupid.
like.
Yeah.
And I would direct my anger at PlayStation, but actually, it's shame on you, Capcom, really, for
Mm.
accepting a deal where you couldn't test your game properly in an open environment on the platform. So, well, hey, whatever. So they've done exclusive, a timed exclusive on an open beta, for whatever fucking pathetic reason that is. But
Yeah.
whatever, at least we're getting the beta this time for a couple of days, and we're going to play that tonight. We haven't played it yet, so we don't have anything to report, I'm afraid. But I'm sure we'll talk about it next week. But is
Oh
there
yeah.
any anything that you wanted to say about the beta, or maybe what you've seen, or any comments
I
there at all?
have seen nothing. I've stayed very spoiler free. I literally don't even know what the beta consists of. I don't know if it's 2 hunts, 3 hunts, if you have all the weapons, if you just have five. I'm going in really blind. And my
Cool.
objective is to basically just try out most of the weapons, figure out what I want to do, and yeah, I'm buzzing. I'm very excited.
Awesome. Well, I won't spoil it for you then. The only thing I do know is that the character you can carry. I actually might be misremembering that. I was about to say you can carry your character that you made through to the full game, but that might actually be Dragon Age. So forget I said that. I don't think
Okay.
that's right. Um, there was something I was going to say. Oh, that was it. So you know how Monster Hunter World, because Monster Hunter as a franchise has always been really a big Eastern thing, really popular in Japan, Korea, China, really popular over there. And then when they started developing World, we didn't really know how well it was going to do, as because it really stepped up in the graphics department. It was one of the prettiest games last gen, I would argue. Um, and it ended up performing exceedingly well. Would I be right, Tim, in saying that World up? Uh, even up to now, I think is probably their best-selling game or most
Yeah.
profitable game or
I think
something
I think
along
it's
those lines.
their highest sold and most profitable. Just every I think it's just Capcom's top game they've ever made. Yeah.
Yeah.
In like every department.
So for following that success, the Monster Hunter Wilds open beta, bear in mind it is a beta, had 457,000 concurrent players on Steam within an hour of release. We ain't we
Half a
ain't talking
mil
about a
in the
niche
first hour.
game anymore. Yeah.
Jesus
This has gone
Christ.
mainstream. And it warms my heart, it really warms my heart to see this franchise blow up in the way it has done, just internationally, because there's just nothing really like it. There's been some copycats back in the day. There were some copycats. I think God Hand was the big one, wasn't it?
Mm,
Um, and
yeah.
then we had Dauntless, which I think has been the only real long term success story, which I always wanted
Yeah.
to play more of. I just never really got round to it. I quite like the look of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then there was Wild Hearts, which unfortunately didn't do as well. It was a little bit of a weird one, but it was perfectly serviceable. But it just
Yeah.
didn't stand out enough from Monster Hunter. And servers have been shut down now and everything, so we'll never be seeing that franchise again. Um, so as a result, it's one of those things where Capcom kind of has a bit of a monopoly on this Monster Hunter genre.
Hmm.
Um, which is good in some aspects because they're crushing it. But in some aspects, maybe they will need a bit of a kick up the arse. So, like, we'll see how it goes. I'm really hoping that because this is seeming to be as popular as it is, they aren't going to, dumb it down as we sometimes
Hmm.
see in like franchises getting really big. We see that a little bit, and I am seeing a little bit from the gameplay of like the gameplay is sped up a little bit. So I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if that, and I've seen a couple of concessions for some weapons where it's clear that it's been made to be more forgiving in some ways. I don't know how it all comes together in a fight or how they've designed the whole thing, but I've seen like, for
Mm.
example, the great swords like charge slash into the next charge slash. You can
Yes.
reposition like after every one, like very generously. Whereas
Mm.
that was quite restricted before, wasn't it? You had to keep going in the direction that you were. Um,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you couldn't do like a 180, whereas now it seems like you kind of can. Um, so we'll have to see how that all pans out. Nonetheless, so excited to be getting another big Monster Hunter game, another main line on these home consoles, as it should have always been. It never should have been a portable franchise. Give me big, spooky monsters with lots of fancy, you know, particle effects. That's where it
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited. But yeah, no, it'd definitely be interesting to see like what you said, of how they, because maybe they've made that more friendly, but then maybe they lowered the damage overall in the great sword or something like that to compensate, or
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
just the monsters are tougher. Maybe the monsters will hit harder, but you just have more movement like options and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting. I think, like you said, Capcom have a good record with Monster Hunter in the sense they're quite inventive with each new game. They try and add something new, like a new quirk or something like that. And I don't think they've ever really strayed too much from what made it great, like from its core. But then Monster Hunter's also never been this big before. So yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see if that plays into it. But I have faith. It definitely looks like they're just going for bigger and better here. Also,
Mm.
I'd like to see the was it the Dire Morales? Because I don't think I ever fought that. The giant fucking like snake.
Snake? Don't
Yeah, it was
think
like a
so.
snake like the size of a fucking country or something, and I never got to fight it, and it looks so cool. It's the one where the Rotten Vale in World is like theorized to be like the corpse of like a Dire
Yeah, the
Morales or
corpse
something.
of one.
Um,
Yeah, is that? I know exactly what you're talking about, but I can't remember. I've just
well, we
quickly
never fought
googled it, and
one
he's
because I think it was in a game that we didn't quite get to like end game on, or a game that kind of was only Japan
Mm.
focused, like a.
Oh, you're talking about? I've got it. I've got it. It's the where is it? It's just up on the side of the fucking
It
wiki
begins
here.
with a
Stop with the
D.
ads. Yeah, Dalamador.
The
Dalamador. That's the one.
Lamador, that's it. I don't know what the Dire Morales is. Maybe that's.
It's like a big volcano boy. I'm. Oh no, I don't know. He's got like cannons on his wings. I think I remember this fight, but he was like an elder dragon. I can't really. I'm not sure if I ever actually fought. Anyway,
Yeah. Either way.
yes, I know what
Yeah.
you mean. Well, we know that they're going for big lobbies. They've said that there are 100-player lobbies, and I don't know if that means like there are 100-player hunts going on, or if it's just 100 like player like gathering hubs, or 100 like players wandering around in the region with you at a time.
I hope just
I don't know.
gathering
We don't.
hubs. I don't need 100-person hunt. Like, let's calm down. Like, I
MMO.
did quite enjoy the what they did with the Call to Wrath. Where you could do that with like you still had your parties, but like everyone had their own instance which chipped away at the monster and like did
Yeah,
that
it's a
was
good
kind
way
of
to do it.
cool. Yeah, like I quite like that, but no, I don't want MMO Monster Hunter. Although
But
Frontier did
it
look
would
pretty
be
cool.
cool if there was like a massive monster and you were all in your own zones and you could like see another squad of hunters like attacking that part of the monster. That would be cool if you could see it in real
Yeah,
time as
that could be
well.
kind of cool. Yeah.
Um, um, so yeah. Oh, and that was my final thing. I've seen some of the like, I've seen some of the like new monsters that they've announced so far, and I've got like some of them are kind of weird. Like
Or
some of them are
quirky.
like that's cool, and then some other ones I've seen I'm like, huh. I guess I'll have
Uh,
to see it move and see it in action before I like fully come to my conclusion. But I don't remember ever seeing one of the monsters in like Worlds and having mixed feelings about it. Like I
what
remember
about
seeing
like
all of them in Worlds and being like, hell yeah.
what about like the Paolumu, the little balloon bat boy? I loved him, but like a
Yeah,
lot of
it's
people
great.
might consider that a bit quirky and a bit.
No, it's the Romp Opolo that I'm thinking of. It's one of the new ones. I would just even type that in Romp Opolo, um, and you'll see what I mean. He's like got a weird fucking spiky mouth. He's like a purple poison boy, and he just looks kind of. He's got a big beak. I don't
He looks
know.
like a
He's really
amalgamation,
bumpy.
doesn't he?
He's like a tumor. Yeah, and he's got like whiskers. Yeah, I don't know,
He
man.
looks
I
like
mean, like I said, I have to see it in
one of those
action.
birds with like they have like the inflated like cheeks or like throats or something like that. I think that's kind of what he's inspired off, isn't it? A little bit.
Maybe, but yeah, and I also do wonder if like that is the theme of this game, like wild, like the monsters are a bit more wild. Maybe that's the story that they're all fucking diseased or something. I don't know.
Mm.
Congalala's back though. Got a big monkey who's going to shit on you and throw poo at you, so that's cool.
In like 4K. Let's go. I'm
Like for
excited for
real,
that. Sit on me, daddy.
man. Great. All right. Well, that's our Monster Hunter hype section. We'll be back with more next week. I had a story here about Dragon Age and but I think we maybe just give this a miss because there's quite a lot of more direct um Xbox stories that I would talk about, and we've got quite a few, and I don't want to drag us out, so I think maybe I'll give that a miss and see how we get on. If it comes up in chat, we'll maybe talk about it. But we'll give that a miss for now. I'm happy for the team that it seems to mostly be doing quite well. Seems like there's a
Mm.
bit of mixed reception on some ends of the scale, but overall it's sitting like 84 open critic or something like that.
Mm.
Good. It's done the best that a BioWare game has ever done. I think it's like 80K concurrent on Steam at the moment, which is it's still pretty good. Dragon Age was never a mega seller franchise, so I'm happy that it's done well. Overall,
Mm.
despite there being some mixed opinions out there.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think yeah, I think the community is less happy with it than the actual reviewers. From what I can see,
Yeah,
I've watched quite a few
yeah.
YouTube reviews and they're a bit mean. Um,
My brutally honest opinion.
yeah, but yeah, no, like you said, I'm glad it's done okay because I do think it could have been like a little bit of a final
Make
straw
or
for
break.
someone like BioWare.
Mm.
So, and it still might be. Who knows? Like maybe this still didn't hit the marks it needed to. So, um, but yeah, so far it seems pretty decent. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's come on to our first Xbox related story for today, which is, of course, the release of Call of Duty.
Whoop,
Man,
whoop.
when we were talking about the ABK deal, all those years ago, and it was going on, and we were, pulling our proverbial hairs out.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know we'd be sitting here one day having to talk about COD on the show and its inclusion in Game Pass. And there really is a lot to say here. So let me just get the facts out the way. Thankfully, before the show went live, there's a couple of days ago now, we got some numbers, some official reports from over at Microsoft. CEO Satya Nadella says last week's launch of Black Ops 6 was the biggest Call of Duty release ever. Pretty impressive, honestly. Setting a record for day one players as well as Game Pass subscriber add ons on launch day. Unit sales on PlayStation and Steam were also up 60% year over year.
Mm.
So, I know I think sometimes we take it for granted that COD is just going to like be bigger than last year, but that hasn't always been the case in the last 5 years. Like it was Modern Warfare 3 last year, wasn't it? And that didn't perform as well as the previous year.
No.
COD has been on shaky ground in terms of like the perpetual growth for a while now. So it's good for them. This seems to have hit a lot of the right notes in terms of the quality bar. So great. Second interesting bit there is obviously setting a record for day one players, as well as subscriber add-ons on launch day. We don't have any firm numbers there because they hate giving us numbers over at Microsoft. But the
Mm.
last time we heard this was when Starfield launched. So I suppose, Tim, the way I wanted to kind of frame this conversation. Oh, and here's the last number. Um, when I last looked, Black Ops 6 was peaking at over 300,000 concurrent on Steam. Quite impressive considering the game's on Game Pass as well.
Mm.
Um, so the way I kind of wanted to frame this conversation was thinking, A, how is how is Black Ops 6 going to affect Game Pass? And then B, how is Game Pass going to affect Black Ops 6? So I suppose because when we spoke about this a while back, we made some predictions of how we thought what is it a good call putting COD on Game Pass?
Mm.
What's the impact going to be? And we've been given some vague sentiment here, but we don't really know. So I suppose on the first bit, like, what are your thoughts here on like the success of the game and the possible knock-on effect to Game Pass? You think this is big? This is small? This is inconsequential in the grand scheme of things? What do you think?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, I think at least right now, it definitely seems like it's quite big, to be able to say, um, you know, for a start that it's had, its highest day one players, as well as Games Pass subscriber add-ons. So that's basically essentially saying that people have subscribed to Games Pass like over that like period of time of COD releasing has jumped the highest ever in Games Pass subscribers, as in like they've seen like a yeah, that's been the biggest influx. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it sounds like it's been quite a big impact, which I think was to be expected. I think, like for anyone that wants to, like, just binge COD, just enjoy it for like their couple weeks or the month, just subscribe to Game Pass for a month, binge it, enjoy it, try out zombies, do whatever. Will they drop off? That's the question. Because our argument when we talked about this last time was we didn't actually think it'd have that big of an impact because we feel like a lot of the Call of Duty players are just the sort of people that buy that one, maybe two game a year, being Call of Duty and something else like Assassin's Creed or something like that. They're a very casual gamer. And for them, it makes financial sense to still just spend the £70 on card rather than stay subscribed. And actually, that will cost them more money. But yeah, I don't really know. I still think that it might be a nice little jump right now in the graph, but I think that will plateau. I think that will even out. I think that will lower quite quickly because I think a lot of people might just like have their fun with it and then drop off because I'm still not convinced that the COD gamers, so to speak, are here to stay for the rest of Games Pass and what that has to offer.
Mm.
So at least that's my take on it. But really, it's kind of just a guess. It's really hard to tell without one the data that we're seeing now, apart from that paragraph, and yeah, two we're essentially trying to predict the future. But that's kind of my thoughts on it at least.
Yeah, and I think that's totally reasonable. Because I mean, I suppose the bigger context here. If we kind of zoom out for a second, the bigger context here is, of course, that we know that Game Pass has stagnated for a growth, for a while now. What seems to essentially have happened is that most of the core to hardcore Xbox users have signed up to Game Pass, and most of them that are signed up sign up to Game Pass Ultimate. Um, there does appear to be they keep anecdotally telling us that PC is a really big growth area for them in Game Pass. We don't know the split. I don't think, to my knowledge. Um, so the bigger question here is, they have pulled out the biggest gun here that they possibly could have done. For
Yes.
Game Pass, like this is it. If this doesn't work, Game Pass, it would seem to suggest that Game Pass has a market limit.
Yeah.
It's been going since 2018 now. It's been 6 years and it's been good. Like, critically, people constantly, the word of mouth is really positive. So it's like, if this doesn't work, realistically, what else can be done to get this number up and up and up?
Yeah.
Maybe they do just keep targeting PC as a growth area, which they clearly have been doing. Hence, all of the strategy games, for example. And the fact that they have a separate catalog, or the price is even a bit lower. It's a kind package to PC gamers to get in on.
Mm.
So that is kind of one of the biggest points of interest here. Like, what happens if this doesn't have the significant effect that Xbox were looking for? What happens then?
Mm. Well,
Because
I
we've already
guess.
seen them adjust the format, haven't they? This is only in Game Pass Ultimate. They went back on on their word, kind of in a way, and
Mm.
said, and day one games are only in Game Pass Ultimate now, So I wonder if any of that starts to fluctuate or change. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be interesting because yeah, as good as Games Pass is, this is kind of like the last Hail Mary, isn't it? Otherwise, you just start to realize, oh, hey, yeah, we got a great thing going, but that graph's always going to be going down. So we need to start, thinking, like we peaked basically. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it would be interesting to see if they adjust it more. To the point where yeah, day one releases don't really happen. Maybe just straight up they just don't drop in. Everything just starts to come in. It just becomes like a bit of like a discounted store if you're like a subscriber, sort of deal in the future. And the whole things move into the game catalogs after they've been out for a certain period of time, but everything else you just get heavily discounted or something like that, and they
Yeah.
adjust the pricing strategy based on that. The whole just you get this for free. Um, day one, maybe that just starts to get phased out. Also, they're gonna have to start looking to just start chucking stuff day one or even closer onto other platforms, PC and PlayStation, constantly to make
Yeah.
revenue over there, right?
Right.
So they can keep up
Absolutely.
with that.
Yeah, and we've always had this conversation about like, would it be feasible really or even preferable to Xbox to get Game Pass on other platforms? Like, would they like that? And the impression I've always got from XX when, like Phil speaks or Sarah speaks is like, no, 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 we wouldn't want to do that. But I kind of get the, like they
If our
would, wouldn't
hand
they?
is forced, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It would be
it's
great for us to
business.
just
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great for us to just become primarily a publisher that gets money from a subscription, and secondarily a hardware producer that appeals to the niche and our current hardcore fan base. Um, but would PlayStation wouldn't let them because they've got their own subscription service, Nintendo, so they wouldn't do jack shit. And in which case, and this is the other thing as well. Of course, like Phil has always reported that Game Pass is profitable. Like that's what they keep saying. We don't know the exact numbers, but they keep saying Game Pass is profitable. But it's like, is it profitable enough? Is this plan going to result in the graph, the line going up enough? Because if not, maybe they do just resign to it being like a secondary service, maybe in the way that
Mhm.
PS Plus is, where it's like stuff isn't day one, it's kind of a older game bargain subscription service rather than like a premium this is your go-to one-stop shop for
Yeah.
all of our games and the occasional third-party game and cherry-picked niche stuff. Like maybe they just scale back on the expensive stuff because they're like, okay, clearly this has a market cap. Like we aren't going to generate extra profits from this in a way that we had hoped to 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that could be a very reasonable sort of avenue they might go down. Yeah, it's kind of what
Mhm.
I was saying as well. Yeah, I think that's, and it's not. I don't know. It's weird because that will not go down well because they have kind of dug themselves a bit
No,
of a hole,
no.
right? So if they do have to pivot for something like that, it's going to be some horrible PR, and you got to think like, even if they're like, oh well, this is the way we do it to quote unquote make more money, is it? Because with the bad rep you're going to get and people just moving away from the platform, just full stop, you got to account for
Yeah.
that as well. So that's going to lose you a lot of money. Um, yeah, it's a hard one to
Because
call.
honestly, like I think they got off quite lightly with the change to um like moving day one games
Yeah,
just into ultimate. I
it
think they
didn't
got off quite
explode
lightly. They
too much, did it?
No, no, and like Xbox has been beat up a lot more for a lot less. you
Yeah.
know and it's like the promise of Game Pass is always that it was like this day one thing, and that was like so appealing because it gave you this sense that as a someone who invested in Xbox, you could be really excited about this first party lineup because you're going to get it day one, and look at all these purchases we're making, and look at how the quality bar is increasing. And even if we just look at COD, like COD is the tip of the spear, really, at least over the next 12 to maybe 18 months. Um, Indiana Jones is coming out in a month. um
Which is crazy.
Probably one of one of the biggest games that Xbox has been a part of, maybe ever. You know, it's a big IP. They don't often do licensing deals, even though they increasingly have been. Um, with their newly acquired studios, Blade obviously being another one coming from Bethesda. Um, but they've kind of conceded exclusivity on that. That's a whole other conversation to get into. And then we've got Avowed in June, and this is ignoring all the stuff in between where we've got Avowed in June, Avowed in February. Um, Towerborn's kind of been ongoing. That's going to release properly first half of next year. Flight Sim is coming out as well. Stalker's coming out as well. Something else I'm missing, I'm sure. And then other things lined up for the rest of 2025. Doom, going to
Mhm.
be huge.
Yeah,
Fable, going to be huge. um, what were the other things that they've got lined up for 2025?
covered
South of
most of
Midnight,
it.
not going to be huge, but still a long project that's been in development for a while that a lot of people are quite excited about. And there is something else I'm missing, but my point being, you know, is that these are big, expensive games. Um, that it's like I don't know if they don't see the growth they want here from COD. I can't see how these games would either. I mean, maybe they have data that suggests differently. Maybe people would be more likely to subscribe for these bigger single player games than they would for COD. Maybe. I mean, I think it's maybe
Or it's
feasible,
just
but it's
people kind of just see them as the additional, right? Like if they're marketed enough,
yeah.
quote unquote, Xbox suck at marketing, but if it's marketed enough, you know, and put in people's faces that these exciting projects are coming up not soon after COD, you know, you're here for COD, but stay for
Yeah.
indie. You know, this is just around the corner. You know, then maybe those subscriptions won't cancel straight away, and then it rolls on to the next month. I think this is why Xbox is trying to have this cadence of having a pretty nice release schedule, just to keep those monthly subscriptions rolling in constantly. But then you've really got to. That's quite hard to um market and get the word out to like the casual gamer to just be like, yeah, sure, you're having fun on COD, but also try this stuff, you know, like, yeah, it's, I don't know, I think it can be done, you know, because I don't think these things, like you said, these things are never going to tip the needle quite like COD did. Like, Indie's just not going to do that. South of Midnight's just not going to do that. Nothing's ever going to tip the needle as far as COD has. Um, but it's just sort of getting them all in to be viewed as like a package deal, um, is I think where the success lies. I think.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, I think you could definitely make the argument as well that like there is quite a lot of variety in the lineup. And you know, actually, with what you were saying about the cadence there, you know, the thing that we always tend to grill Phil about is that like for since 2020 now, and Matt Booty as well. They, in fact, the whole C-suite really at Xbox have been saying for years now, we want to have one big game a quarter. Like that was their thing, and they kind of have accomplished that since 2023 really. Last year they but the thing is there's always an asterisk, or there's always something. um there's always a half measure in there somehow. 23, yeah, technically I suppose, but you had Redfall in there, and Starfield also came with a lot of negative noise as well, so it's not like that was four big wins. And then this year, um we had Hellblade in May, nothing in quarter one. We're coming into the end of we're coming uh, to the end of quarter three now, and we had nothing other than Towerborn releasing into Steam and not on Xbox. And now we're coming into quarter four, and there's Stalker, Indie, and Flight Sim. So it's like
Yeah, they still need to figure
we're
it
not
out
quite
a bit
there, are
there.
we? Yeah, and
Yeah,
Avowed was delayed, of course, out of the window that it was supposed to be, which was
to be released in the same month as Wild. Yeah, nice.
yeah, which was just
Great
super
job.
unlucky for them. But next year is looking like that cadence might line up. And to come on to the second point of where I started, maybe there is something. Oh, that was the other thing in 2025. Yeah, Avowed, uh, Doom, Avowed,
So
Fable, South of Midnight, um, which is a big year. And there's like maybe those games will appeal to different audiences in the sense that it will pull some people onto the subservice. But then it's a question of, are they really going to stay? Like, is it
yeah,
are people beyond the Xbox core audience gonna stay? Like, and that has always been the ongoing question of like, does this work for games in the same way that it works for TV? And on paper, you can see why they've gone for it, but maybe not. I mean, who knows? We all agree Game Pass is great for consumers. It's fantastic. Um, it'll be Xbox's call to make. As it all seems to be coming up to and crescendoing into as we like approach the next gen of like what are they going to do, how are they going to make this all make sense,
Yeah,
like what's the
yeah.
strategy they're going to go ahead with, is it just gonna they're just gonna keep doing this, um
I mean, the amount.
maybe this
Yeah,
go
I
on.
was just going to say, like, the amount of sheer data that needs to be digested, analyzed, and
Yeah,
like future proofed and future plans from just this one release, just COD. Like, it's almost like this release is deciding what Xbox is going to do for the next like
yeah,
10 years. I think this Black Ops 6, which is so crazy to think, but I genuinely think it is. Like, I think that's how important it is. I think.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't disagree at all, but I think this is part of the problem, and like we've heard insiders like Jason Schreier has made a comment about it as well, how like the strategy is just changing like year to year at the moment internally, and we can feel that, the community can feel that. It's why the community is so twitchy
It's
about what's
jarring.
happening next, what's happening with exclusives, what's like the games actually look great. Like we're at this stage now where like the quality of games has been good for a while now, and like the lineup is looking good. It's all enough to there's triple A's, there's new IPs, there's remakes. This showcase they had was fantastic. Their showings are good now. These partner previews they do, the developer directs that they do in general, great. They finally got that shit sorted out. But the bigger picture is making the community so twitchy, and that's just like kind of a reflection of how
Mm,
I think how things are going internally. We're actually there kind of looking at the numbers and saying, well, what's like the best call here? Because we heard that it was a big it was a big discussion whether Game Pass should even go on. Sorry, whether COD should even go on Game Pass.
yeah.
You know,
It's
which is
so.
crazy to me because like
Yeah.
what was the plan when you acquired ABK? How have you not spoken about this before? Like, what was the
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It literally just seems like they're kind of just doing everything so ad hoc, right? And it just, yeah, you're right. It kind of just leaves. I feel like a lot of the Xbox fan base right now, especially like the core ones as well, that actually follow it. Everyone is excited, but everyone's just reading into everything, thinking, "What's the catch?"
So nervous.
like
Yes.
it does come across like that, and it comes across with me as well. Like when I see things coming up and I'm just like, all these games, like there is a part of me that's just thinking, what's the catch here, what's going on? There's something here that will not benefit me solely as a core
Yeah.
as an Xbox consumer solely, which is so weird to
Yeah.
think because it's a first party release, but I'm thinking this won't benefit me in some way.
Yeah. Or will undermine me as someone
Yeah,
who has
look,
invested into the
yeah.
ecosystem.
Like I'll have the
Yeah.
same benefit, but like I should have more because I'm
Yeah.
invested in it. Whereas someone else who's not as invested in me or on a completely different platform is getting the same
Of
benefits
course.
I am.
Of course. And
Um,
I think, that is I think that is one of the problems. I think, and I know some people feel this way authentically and genuinely and in good faith, and I don't want to take this away from them. But I think Xbox has up till this point felt that giving access to their first party games and getting access to it, having the privilege to access it on Game Pass is a big enough like incentive.
yeah.
Like I not only get this game, but I get it in Game Pass for a good price,
Mm,
which is good. Don't get me wrong, but that for most of your core and hardcore audience, the ones who are giving you most of the money, they just want access to the most games.
yeah.
Like, because I have thought this through. I thought I was been thinking about it. Like, I wonder how it would feel if I just sold my Xbox and I just became a PlayStation main. Sure, I would get access to all these games eventually. All the first party stuff on Xbox does seem to eventually be making its way over to PlayStation. I don't know if that'll happen with every game, but that is kind of seeming like how it's going. Eventually, maybe there are some lines in the sand where some stuff won't go over, whatever. Um, but I would have to pay £70 for every single game. Um,
Mm,
Would that be worth it for me? I mean, maybe it's a hard call, honestly, for me as someone who is, really invested in the Xbox ecosystem. But maybe there's people who aren't as much and feel actually, I would rather just have access to the full buffet, even if I have to pay for each individual item,
mm.
rather than have access to only three-quarters of the buffet, but get it for much cheaper. And I suppose that must be the calculation that Xbox are looking at internally, where they're like, because of course we're not just talking about console anymore, are we? It's become part of the focus and not the full focus. Which is
Mm,
why again we come back to this question of like, where's it going in the long run? Like what is next gen? Are we really going more PC? Because sometimes it really does feel like Xbox are just saying to me, get a PC, bro. like
yeah,
sometimes it feels
a
like
little
that is
bit.
what they're trying to say to me, because it feels like the best way to experience Xbox stuff right now is on PC. And I think that's understandably alienating to the hardcore audience.
Yeah, no, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, but then it's also mixed messages because they bring stuff like Valorant to console, so it's just like, huh?
Yeah.
Like if you're screaming at everyone, or like, well, not screaming at everyone, but like you feel like they're heavily insinuating and stuff like that, they wouldn't be making big partnerships like that and big games like that coming to that platform. So it's just they're just flip flopping, man. Like I really just don't know. Like you said, I just don't think they know. So they're just like everything kind of just gets signed off on the day. Yeah, this will go into Games Pass stamp.
Yeah.
They got like a pile
Yeah.
that Phil's just got a stamp, and every morning he just
Yeah.
has got a pile. Games Pass, no Games Pass, Games Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit chaotic. Yeah.
And because I remember really like pertinent to this conversation, I think this came up in our time where we had like a big break, but um that I think it was like, I can't remember who it's from, so chat's gonna have to correct me, but I'm pretty sure it came from a really reliable source. It might have been Tom Warren or Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming. I really am not sure. Maybe it was Windows Central, I can't remember. That like Xbox saw that there was a really negative reaction in sentiment when Indiana Jones was revealed to be coming to PlayStation at the end of Gamescom, at the end of the Gamescom
Oh
opening night
yeah,
live.
yeah.
That there was like a really big negative reaction to that, and opened up some conversations about what is the right way to go about it.
Mm.
Understandably, because it's like, what are we doing? Why are you doing that before the game's even launched?
Yeah, I kind of booed
Like,
it. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah,
Yeah.
like this is like one of the biggest games you guys have ever made, like as a platform exclusive, and before the game even comes out, before there's even an opportunity for people to swap consoles, maybe people
Mm.
wouldn't do that. Whatever, I understand the arguments. Before that is even an opportunity for that to occur, just to see,
But
they just announce it.
maybe they're a pardon me. Maybe they're obliged to. I don't know. Maybe it's like some
Maybe it
sort
was
of
Disney thing.
yeah,
Maybe. I mean, PlayStation never seems to have this problem with Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine,
yeah.
but I guess maybe.
Mm, yeah, maybe it's something. But yeah, it definitely does seem weird because they could have just been like, yeah, so or just like kept it elusive, right? And then everyone's just assuming, oh, it's Xbox only. But then, 2 months into it's come out, it's reviewed well. 2 months later, yeah, it's coming to PlayStation, by the way. Instead of doing it before the game releases. Yeah. But then what do you
I
do?
don't.
I don't know. Would they probably get criticized for that as well, though, for being kind of snaky. Wait until it comes out. Everyone might switch the platform just to play it,
That's
whatever,
what
and
everyone
then
else fucking does.
yeah, but
Like,
you
it's what
know,
Nintendo
yeah,
does,
but
it's what PlayStation does.
Xbox will get gaslit more for it. So I feel like it's a bit of a catch-22. I feel like whichever way they go for, it's it's gonna kind of blow up in their face. And I think at least recently, I think Xbox would definitely be going for the honesty is the best policy and being trying to be more transparent, I guess.
Well, this is the thing, and it's that this ties back into the COD story really well, actually, because you're like, despite all of this whinging that we're doing, we're just talking about Xbox. Xbox has really, and they've told us this, they've given up trying to win the console war. They've
Mm,
said that that's not happening anymore. So what's the point in pretending that Indiana Jones isn't coming to PlayStation when it is? We may as well get the pre-order numbers in now than just
mm,
pretend it's not, and maybe lose out on some interest, or whatever. We've seen the benefit of a cross-platform release. I think like Final Fantasy is something that comes to mind, and Metaphor, right, as well. Yeah, like
mm,
releasing everywhere. bigger word of mouth, bigger snowball effect, bigger network effect. So, overall, there's compounded, advantages to doing that. So maybe that's just crossing their mind as well. It's like, how many people are really going to buy an Xbox over their PlayStation if we keep our lips sealed for 6 months about the exclusivity of Indiana Jones,
Yeah,
and they've done the numbers and they've thought, not enough. Let's just announce it for all platforms. Maybe
yeah,
that is really the case, but nonetheless, you can't help. It's understandable, that people are then left feeling confused. And the reason why I said it ties well into the COD story is because we were talking as well, weren't we, about like all these advertisements that are going out for COD. Where's the Xbox logo? Where's the Game
hmm,
Pass logo? Like, it was so few and far
yeah,
between that there was an advert that was like really putting it in your face that this is on Game Pass. And I wonder if there's something similar going on there as well. They don't want to confuse all gamers that this is an exclusive.
hmm,
They still want PlayStation's money. They still want
yeah,
I wonder if they're just looking at the bigger picture and they're like, look, we're getting money off everyone now. So
yeah. Which just again solidifies the theory that they just care about how the software performs, not necessarily what hardware it's played on, right?
right.
But
Yeah.
they just care, and maybe that's and yeah, it's just that theory that they're going to eventually just become a software provider that just puts their stuff everywhere, right? They just got the IPs and the games and stuff like that, because that's the impression they give off, where they're just like,
Mhm.
Xbox players, PlayStation players, it doesn't matter. We just care about it hitting. We'd rather have 3 million
Money.
sales. Yeah, we'd rather have 3 million people buy this game than pretend it's exclusive, keep it exclusive, and have 900,000 enjoy it on
Yeah.
their Xboxes as an exclusive. So
Mhm.
yeah,
We really got off track there talking about COD, but it's all part of the very interesting like market experiment that Xbox seem to be doing, and like just to because there's so many factors here in like what they're going to be looking at as a success. I think so far monthly active users seem to be record breaking, sales seem to be record breaking. It's record breaking number of Game Pass subs in one day. So from what they're saying there, sounding like a big success. But before the game came out, analysts were predicting that Black Ops 6 could bring in 4 million Game Pass subscriptions, but might cost the game 6 million game sales. In which
mm,
I'm wondering if Xbox was finding something similarly internally, and if they felt that that was a good trade-off. Again, you then put this side by side against all the other factors that we're talking about, not just for COD, for everything: exclusivity, timed exclusivity, perks, no exclusivity, marketing for Game Pass, no marketing for Game Pass. It's just like they've got so many like levers and switches and dials to turn and flip if they want to. It's just, I wonder if this is going to be the data they need to figure out what configuration that all those things should be in.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's one big testing ground at the moment. I think, and just figuring out what's what. And that's what I mean. There's just so much data to consume off the back of this. Like, they've really got their work cut out for them now.
Consume.
To see how
Definitely.
this goes. Yeah.
Definitely. That feels like a good a time as any to pivot away from COD, actually. And you know what, Tim? We'll go down to the bottom of the notes there to talk about Xbox financials, because we were kind of talking about that anyway in some sense. And
Mhm.
surprise, 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 Tim, gaming revenue is up. Xbox by 43%. Xbox content and services revenue is up by 61%. Xbox hardware is down 29%. This is year
Yeah.
over year, so quarter one. So it's like, what is it, June onwards, isn't it? June,
Mm.
July, August, probably, compared to June, July, August last year. Um, this is like kind of how it goes every time now, isn't it? This is what we should expect. Money going up for Xbox, hardware going down for Xbox.
Yeah.
And however, this time you may remember, like every time we spoke about this, Tim, there was always like 3 or 4 articles from outlets that clearly hated Xbox and the platform and what they're doing with acquisitions, who would be like, yeah, but all of that money came from Activision. Like without Activision, Xbox would be down 5%.
That's true.
Right. Okay. In some alternate timeline where this acquisition hadn't happened, I mean, maybe, and Xbox just had that 69 billion lying around and didn't invest it in any other
In
way.
anything else, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Very high concept thinking there.
Mhm.
But we don't even have that this time because 53 points of the 61 were a net impact from the Activision acquisition, which means 8% of that must be from
Just
Xbox Game
natural.
Studios slash Bethesda as well. So
Yeah.
growth across the board year over year from this time last year, just not in hardware. And it ties in nicely to the conversation we're having there because, like, what is the plan? You're making money, like you're doing well, and in
Mm.
fact, you're doing well. Things must be selling on PC. I wonder, like, I'm so curious to like understand how much of that figure is from like mobile games versus games that are now on PlayStation versus their traditional console users. Like they must be looking at that and saying, yeah, wow, look at all this money we're getting from PC. Let's just keep going in on that.
Yeah.
Super
Mhm.
curious. Super curious.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it kind of feeds into everything we've actually already said. That I feel like this data
Yeah.
just proves the point that why go in on hardware when you can just do it all with software and just put it everywhere, right? And I do feel like every time these figures come round and they're looking at these internally and all that, obviously well before the press even get hold of it, that's 100% what they're planning, right? I feel like they're always just going to go where the money is. I mean, it's a business at the end of the day. They're going to make, I feel like hardware will become less of a priority. I feel like maybe at some point Xbox, they might have another next gen or two in them potentially. They might throw in a portable or something like that, but then I think they'll just be quite happy to just have an okay console that can play some of the software. Software goes everywhere. I don't think they're going to compete to be the most powerful home console anymore or have that battle anymore. Like I really don't think they've got many more of those fights left in them, to be honest. It's a waste of their time. So
Mm.
yeah.
And again, like so much of that information from a consumer perspective is like, what are you guys doing next?
Yeah.
Because like that's the big thing for me. I guess maybe that's just me projecting a little bit, but that's just like my big thinking of like if they just come out next gen and just say, "Yep, we're doing an Xbox Series X2. It's got 20 teraflops, done it." And yeah, it's got quick resume 2.0 and cross save 2.0.
Connect's coming back.
And it's got Game Pass still. Yeah, coming back. And there's no real innovations there. I'm really gonna be thinking, I'm not gonna bother. I'm just gonna save up for a PC.
Yeah.
Maybe that doesn't matter
Yeah.
to them. Maybe that really they don't care. Um, but however, if they come out and they do say we've totally revamped and redefined what an Xbox is, you're no longer looking at something running on traditional console architecture. This baby is running on Windows 14, whatever. And there,
Mm.
as we've long spoken about, and
It'd
it
be called
does have a
Windows
Steam
X.
storefront, and it does have an Epic Games Store storefront. And look, we've streamlined it, and look, we've got Gaben on stage, and he's fucking throwing out shapes. Woohoo, Xbox, you know. And you can play Steam games, where compatible. And look, hey, as a result, you can play PlayStation games because they're on Steam as well. Fucking idiots, am I right? You know, then I think you keep me on board. Like I will buy that. That sounds great. Um, it stops me from spending my money on a PC and them therefore losing money as I spend all my money in the Steam ecosystem. If I kept this PC hybrid thing, I would end up spending a bit of money probably in both, right? So they would still be getting more money by doing that. Um,
Mm.
but nonetheless, I don't think that would change the tide in terms of what you're saying for the larger console battle. I don't think suddenly people are going to be like, I'm not buying the PS6, I'm going to buy this new PC
No.
Xbox hybrid thing. They're not going to give up their ecosystem just to do that.
No.
So either way, I think this is always the case. It's more just a matter of how far are you willing to go to make sure that this blended approach of releasing things everywhere keeps your core audience interested, and how do you ensure that you don't lose money from them?
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe they
100%.
don't care. Or like you said, maybe they actually just don't care, and they're like, there's more money to be made in other areas. So if you guys
Mhm.
want to stick with us, sound. But if you don't, fine, because we're making so much money in so many other areas now that honestly we can lose you, and that would be fine. Like chopping off a tumor. So
Yeah. And I hate to say it, but I do think that's probably what they're thinking.
I think it's feasible. Yeah, I think it's feasible.
Um, yeah, which I, is obviously it's a bit of a kick in the teeth. It's not nice to hear from a loyal, fan of Xbox. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I feel like even if they did something like revolutionary and really changed up the game, it's not going to stop people from. It's not going to sway everyone's decision to just not get the PS6 and just move on to their platform. So I think regardless, I think it's just the way it's heading. And yeah, it's definitely looking like gaming PC sort of territory in the next gen or two. We'll see what they come out with, but like you said, even if they do, is it worth that investment? Because something like that's going to be at a pretty high price point, with it being like a completely new
Absolutely.
architecture and nothing ever done. And then I still think Xbox are going to just see it as a loss, So
Yep.
why bother? It might be cool, but even it still probably isn't worth investing in. So yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Yeah, and it's their, as I keep saying, it's their point to prove. The ball is in their court. They've got to make this work for the most amount of people that they can. With their whatever strategy they're going to end up going for, if it is the continued Game Pass thing, or if it's just more gamers everywhere, if they are sticking to that at the cost of their core base, whatever it is, it's their point to prove to kind of get the most money out of all of that. Um,
mm,
there was something there that I wanted to say, and I can't remember what it was. I hate when this happens.
it's the worst.
It's the worst. No, it wasn't about the portable. Hmm. Drat. How annoying. Okay.
I'm sure it would have
I
been
guess
great, man.
I guess we're just gonna have to move on then. Damn. How anticlimactic. It's because I started needing a wee. That coffee went through me and it just really distracted me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think actually maybe this was it, and this is what we can kind of wrap up on as the final point of talking about, COD and Xbox future and Xbox financials and all that, which is I think even though we're saying about this with a bit of a dour, you know, attitude towards Xbox's future, I've never been like more confident in the output of their games and more excited about like the stuff that they've got lined up.
Yeah,
I
totally.
genuinely think, to me, Xbox out of the big three have the most exciting lineup over the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
Next year looks great. I it's been a bit disappointing this year, actually, personally. However, the games that have come, I have really liked. Game Pass continues to be great. Fable, Doom, South of Midnight, Avowed. I'm genuinely excited about every single one of those games, and for them to all be Game Pass day one is genuinely fantastic.
Mm.
Um, I will play every single one of those games. So I think part of that is the frustration that has like be built up within a lot of the community, that like we're finally at the point where like you seem to have nailed down what people want, and quality to a degree and cadence to a degree, but now you're shifting gears or can't quite seem to find where to go next. So regardless, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, regardless of what happens next, if I do end up going PC or I do follow them down whatever they end up doing next gen, I am still interested in these games, so they will still get my money that way.
Oh yeah,
um
100%. Yeah.
which is what they want, I suppose. And the only way I could see any of this like changing at all is if they have a series of like 90 plus games. Um, I don't know
Mm,
if that sounds like naive or unrealistic, but I think if they had like straight up like 390 plus games in the next 2 years, I think people would be talking. I don't think it would like change the tide or anything, but I do think conversations would start to be had both by consumers and internally at Xbox of like, you know,
mm,
what should we actually do here? So we'll see.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. We'll wrap that topic up then. I think we'll go for two final stories for today. The first one is we've spoken about Indiana Jones a little bit already. I just wanted to talk about the previews that the game has got. I don't know if you saw any of the previews over the week, Tim. Lots of people got a
Couple.
chance to play Indy, and we saw some previews. Any opinions? Anything you wanted to voice there?
Yeah, I've seen a couple passing previews. So I'm not too well versed in what's going on with it, but I think,
Shall I just give a quick summary first? Then would that
yeah,
be best for
yeah,
you?
yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I've just taken a screenshot from Pure Xbox here. We've done a really nice, just like summary of blurbs from all sorts of different outlets, which I'll just read out kind of two, three, maybe four of them.
Mm.
So IGN says, quote, I don't know if executive producer Todd Howard, who famously pitched this idea to Lucasfilm many years ago, had machine games in mind when he came up with it, but the pairing absolutely works, and I absolutely can't wait to get the rest of Indy's experience. And I absolutely can't wait to experience the rest of Indy's latest adventure. Got there in the end. GameSpot said, quote, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle feels like an amalgam of many games of genres, but appears to be striking the right balance between them, all in favor of honoring the spirit of Indiana Jones, the archaeology professor and adventurer. While 90 minutes wasn't enough time to get the full scope of everything the game has to offer, it gave me a taste of a kind of adventure puzzle game seldom seen in the AAA space, and it is one that is shaping up to be an impressive display of Machine Games' toolset and understanding of molding game design around its protagonist and story. And last one, then I'll pick on Eurogamer. Quote, it's shaping up to be a wonderful love letter to Indiana Jones, just like Rogue City was to Robocop. And anyone who counts themselves a fan of the movie trilogy, there's definitely only been 3 movies, don't know what you're talking about, should definitely have this on their radar. Close quote. There's a couple more there. But I'd encourage you to all have a look yourselves to our listeners. But Tim, does that help? What do you think of that, and what else you've seen?
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Kind of, yeah, yeah, kind of similar to what I've heard the rumblings of. Generally very positive. From what I hear. There hasn't been much of a bad word to say. And I think it's kind of definitely giving the energy that we've discussed about the game as well. Like, I think that we've discussed it in the sense of it's just going to be like a fun single player adventure game that really captures the spirit of Indiana Jones. You know, like when we were watching it, we're not huge indie fans. Obviously, we said this before and stuff like that. But like when we've watched it, we've said it does. We do feel like it's actually captured that essence really well, and that's what everyone's preaching about. So at the end of the day, that's
Mm,
really all it needs to do, man. If it's a fun indie game and really captures that essence of Indiana Jones, and it's a good 15-hour experience, single player action game, they've smashed it on the head. That's all you need to do. So, very
absolutely,
positive.
and I think that's like one of the things that I'm taking away here. Like as we said, not a massive Indiana Jones fan. It's not that I'm not a fan. I like the original trilogy. They're fun. They're campy. They are what they
Yeah.
are. But I am a big fan of machine games, and like some of the gameplay I watched was really like it gave a lot of immersive sim vibes, and like it seems like there's a lot of variety to the gameplay. And I think it was actually Ryan McCaffrey's IGN video preview that like really emphasized like this is more of an adventure action game more than it is an action adventure game. And I think like one of the previews said there, like, you sell, you don't really see this stuff in the AAA space very much. There's a lot of puzzles, there's a lot of like taking photographs, soaking in the adventure, and then
Mm.
these like quote unquote dungeons where you have to sneak through and grab stuff and distract them to get past, or smack them on the back of the head. And I saw like in the preview loads of like very unique animations which are just like they're having fun with it. Like they're having fun with it in trying to capture the tone of like an 80s action movie, where like I saw Indy had an umbrella and he went up behind someone for a stealth move, and instead of just smacking him on the head, he put it between his legs and fucking hooked it in on his cock. You know, that's funny stuff. Like, and like all this goofy shit happening in the hand to hand fights where people are like, he's punching them, and instead of them knocking over, they're just like, you know, very slowly falling backwards, but then you can like push them over, or
Mm,
like push them off a cliff. Like there's like clear like humor and tone like weaves into the game, which, like as we said before, it always looked like they were nailing, but were nailing in a way which is actually quite impressive to integrate into a video game where it's like traditionally this sort of thing is like high action, quick movements, badass points. It's not that at all. You know,
mm,
it's funny, it's light-hearted, it's campy. Um, so I'm really excited to see how it does overall. I'm definitely, if it does well, I'll definitely be looking to give it a go as a Machine Games fan. And you know, definitely the immersive sim elements are giving me Dishonored vibes. You know, which I'm obviously a massive fan of.
mm.
So I think this could be really good. It's just a real shame. I know most people don't care or don't think it matters that much, but it's a real shame. It's going to release uh after the cutoff for the Game Awards. I think they just announced it today actually that the Game
Mm.
Awards is going to be on the 12th. Indiana Jones releases on the 5th, and usually games had to have released a month before, like a full calendar month before the Game Awards. So
Okay.
everybody will be talking. It reminds me of actually when Halo came out in 2021, when everybody was talking about Halo, but it wasn't actually in any of the, like he got the
Mm.
Player's Choice Award because that could happen last minute, but it wasn't in any of the categories. And then by the time the next year rolled around, it obviously had very fair issues, but it didn't appear in any categories as a result. You know, with those things combined, the recency bias and the fact that the service really let the game down.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, cool. I don't think I have anything else to add there.
No, me neither.
Go Machine Games. I hope it does well, not just for them, but I hope, you know, Xbox get to see that, and if it does well, to really see the positive sentiment they can get when they have a big mainstream licensed game, you know, in their portfolio. You know, I really hope they are able to look at that and take that in.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, final topic for today then. I think we'll do. Final topic isn't about Xbox. It's about PlayStation. It's about
Oh
PlayStation
boy.
closing the devs of Concord, so Firewalk Studios,
Mhm.
just about they only acquired them last year, Tim. They only acquired that studio last year. And not only did they, you might not know this, but they didn't just close the Concord devs, they also closed their lead mobile dev, Neon Koi, which is also a fucking sick studio name.
Yeah,
Neon Koi, are you
Neon
joking?
Koi. Yeah,
That's
I keep them.
awesome.
Just I hope they kept the IP, like the name. We're gonna
They
use that.
rebranded it as well. They were called like Savage Game Studios or something before, but they rebranded them to Neon Koi and then they closed them before they even got a game out the door.
Mm.
Um, like, man, what? Any thoughts about this studio getting closed? You know, the game only having 2 weeks on the market. Game being in development for since 2018. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, what do you think?
Nothing that hasn't been said a billion times already.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of predicted this. I saw Concord right from minute one. Didn't like it. Didn't think it would do well. I didn't think it would do that bad. That was kind of a shit show and has gone down in history as
Ray,
probably the biggest flop in gaming history, right?
definitely.
And will probably
From what
hold
I've
that
said.
record, I would imagine, forever. Hopefully, hopefully nothing flops as bad as that again.
No.
Um, so yeah, and then in the sense of it being taken off, refunded, and they were going to work around with it, I said immediately, this game's not coming back. Like I knew that for an absolute fact. There's
There's
no
still
way.
time.
No,
There's still time.
there's really not. I just knew it. Like there was not even a. I couldn't even second guess it. Like you could not have convinced me otherwise. I knew this game was never seeing the light of day again. So it's sad to see, but it just really goes to show just how Sony just really just don't know what they're doing in the multiplayer like market. outside of their niche that they're obviously good at. They just really don't know. Because I mean, how could they look at this and think like, this is it? We're buying the studio because this is the game, and it's so premium. We're also going to charge people 40 quid for a multiplayer game in 2024 when it's got all those competitors with it. It's so incredibly stupid. Like I just didn't even see the potential in the game to begin with, like to buy a studio for and stuff like that. I think it had some cool things going for it. Don't get me wrong, but I just think it
Well, the
just took too.
pedigree was really good.
Yeah,
Like
it
they
just
had
took
a
too
lot of like
long.
Bungie devs and COD devs, and
Yeah,
they had like loads of really good, like League of Legend, I think as well. Like really good pedigree in that team.
just too long in the
Um,
oven, man. Like they just missed their
exactly.
goal. Like they essentially saw Overwatch and thought, we quite like the idea of that. We can probably do something similar.
Yeah,
And then they
six
were
years
just
later,
so fucking late.
nobody
And
wants hero shooters anymore.
yeah, no one wants that shit anymore. And yeah, it really doesn't surprise me, but like, just such like an
Such a fuck up.
incredible fuck up and loss. It's insane, like the amount of money lost on that. And the thing is this is going to make Sony even more fucking skeptical for their future projects that have like multiplayer focus like this as well. Like, I really think Marathon has, well, a marathon in store for it. Um,
Hey,
like I wouldn't be surprised if that game just gets canned. Like they're literally just like, we just don't think it's worth the risk or something like that. Based on what's happened here, like, because from what I've heard, internal rumblings, it's not looking too hot either. So
they
I
did a very small dev
don't
update the
know.
other day. Did you see that? Did you?
No, I didn't. No.
But it was just like the studio head, I'm pretty sure, sat down for 9 minutes and just spoke about the game, which is so funny because they must have been like, man, people are really don't have any faith since the leaks and how long the
Yeah.
game's been in the oven and everything. So they must have been like, let's just say something,
Yeah.
and especially because we very recently heard as well that Sony, I can't remember the exact terminology, but it was Sony are taking more creative control of Bungie. I can't remember exactly what it is, but we heard since the acquisition that there was like Bungie will retain independence, but there is a clause in there that if they start underperforming, PlayStation can start taking control,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
started happening. And that worries me a little bit in a number of ways because firstly, it's PlayStation doesn't exactly have a good track record of releasing like service games
No.
or shooters. They can't make a shooter for shit. Like since they
No.
stopped making Resistance, since Guerrilla stopped making
And
Resistance, like they
Killzone.
can't make a first person shooter and Killzone, yeah. And maybe Guerrilla was Killzone, I can't remember. Um so that worries me a bit. And also like it worries me like I really wouldn't be surprised if eventually the game starts shaping up that if PlayStation just go for the jugular and they're just like, we're making it exclusive. Like, because they've otherwise announced that
Mm,
Marathon is on all platforms.
yeah.
Um, but I really wouldn't put it past PlayStation, and that might be the only saving grace of Concord's failing, that there's a giant money pit in their financials that they need to make up. And
Yeah.
maybe that money pit is Xbox
Yeah.
and PC.
But do you also not think it's kind of, they're kind of scared in the fact off of Concord's incredible failure that they will
Yeah.
they will want to put it out to more people just in case it isn't quite as good or it doesn't stick to the wall quite like they were hoping. Because if it doesn't stick to the wall, it doesn't shape up quite like they're hoping, and they've made it exclusive, then that's just, again, it's just an absolute disaster. Where they'd make more money for it at least if they went multiplayer. It's safer for them to go multiplayer, I think.
I mean, you would have thought, but it never seemed to be a consideration for Concord. And never also, and this is the thing, Tim, they are so incredibly lucky that Helldivers was the hit that it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they cooked,
Unbelievable
man. What's
stroke
the
of
what's the
luck,
dev
planet
again?
blind, Arrowhead.
Arrowhead. Yeah, they
Not even
cooked, man.
not a first party dev. Like
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
just it's a PlayStation IP, but they got a new dev. I don't think Arrowhead made the first Helldivers. They got a new dev to work on the franchise. They hardly marketed it, which is very weird for PlayStation. Like, usually they're really big on traditional marketing. They put it on your buses and shit like that. Um, They hardly did anything for Half-Life. They were not anticipating this game to be any sort of big success. It was just a nice thing to put in the catalog, and then it exploded because it had loads of very unique ideas and fresh approaches and a tight combat gameplay loop within this service model. And it's still doing pretty well. It's fallen off quite a bit, but it's it's coming up to a year old now. The game's great. We played it.
Oh,
I
it's
would happily
great.
go back and play Helldivers. It's a solid game. I know the community is a bit frustrated here and there. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. They had a big hit there. They would have made a lot of money off what would have been, even though it had a long dev cycle, it would have been a fairly cheap game to make in the compared to things like Concord or the single player ventures with God of War, Last of Us, whatever.
Yeah,
They are
definitely.
so I do wonder like if Helldivers happened and then they looked internally and they were like, no, we can lock down Concord in the same way, which is, you know, not free to play and,
Mm.
um, all of that jazz. Or like, I wonder if it was even a conversation that they had of like, should we release Concord multiplat? And I wonder if Helldivers helped influence that decision, or maybe it was just never even crossed their mind. Maybe they were just like, no, we would never do that. We don't want to put our games on Xbox. We're not even looking at that approach just yet. Um, I don't
Mm.
know, but it does. Like they're clearly still going for this live service push, and there's nothing that they have shown. I mean, if you really look at the history of their live service, because again, Helldivers and the recency and the success of Helldivers really muddies people's like perspective on how successful PlayStation's live service venture is, because that was their first big one. Really, it was such a big unexpected hit that
Mm.
people tend to think like have mixed feelings about their service push with now Helldivers and Concord, but really Last of Us Online cancelled.
Yeah.
Spider-Man multiverse game cancelled. That was never supposed to be see the light of day, but it was leaked. Whatever. We know it happened, and it's taken up dev time and money. Concord, biggest failure the live service genre has ever seen.
Yeah.
Fair games. I don't think anybody's particularly excited about that.
No, it doesn't look great.
Not a not a first party title, but can't help but think it was testing the waters with what was it fucking called? The Splatoon game from Square Enix.
Oh, Foam Stars?
Foam Stars, thank you.
How did I know
Like
that?
PlayStation doesn't usually market or align themselves with live service games like that. Like I can't help but feel that was received awfully as well. You
Yeah.
know, it's been like failure after failure after failure after cancellation after cancellation. A
Mhm.
marathon, as we've said, like doesn't appear to be going particularly well. That's like a really long drawn out dev cycle as well. So like if I'm a PlayStation studio right now and I'm making a live service game, I am shitting myself
Yeah.
because PlayStation just took Firewalk out back and
Just executed
blew
them.
their head off. Yeah. Mental. Tim, they've been working on that game for 6 years of their life. Six
Yeah.
years ago, you were 24. You know, think about the space, like where you were in your life then compared to now, and think of those devs, how long they've been working on that. The game came out for 2 weeks and they fucking shotgun blasted their heads off. Like,
It is so
it's
bad.
it is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like,
And I wonder how
the
much of that
risky
was
version.
kind of bought on by Sony as well. Like Sony just like bought them up and we're just like, yeah, we like this. Yeah, we want to charge like an entry fee for this. This is going to be the next big thing. How many of those decisions would they have made if Sony didn't, buy up the studio? Would it have been quite as catastrophic, or did they help fucking just kill the game and then just be like,
Yeah.
oh, your game sucked, and then execute them
They
as
fattened the
well?
cow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
rough.
I mean, man, it is so sad, like, to be acquired and to go through and for your game to becoming an increasingly big
But a
risk
historic
and
failure as well. It's
and
just
for it to just perform so poorly and to just, man, just be shut down straight after. Like, yeah, it's honestly like, heartbreaking.
mm,
It's hard to even know, like, and I know the game didn't perform well. I understand that. But it's weird that there was no intervention in the middle, or that Sony weren't willing to at least give it a year on the market. That's what usually happens. Like, these service games are usually given a year to see
Mm.
if they can get any sort of traction. And we've said this before, like, you look at X, because really Xbox is the only one of the big three which has like this consistent cadence of service games. They've pulled back on it a little bit because they want to feed Game Pass with variety. I know Nintendo has had some success with some of their stuff like Splatoon and what's it, Pokemon Unite or whatever it is. Is it Unite?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
you know, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but they've they don't seem to be able to land this because they just there's no risk tolerance there in the same way that Xbox released Sea of Thieves and stuck with it for 6 years, and now it's a bestseller
Yeah,
every year
but
on all platforms.
Sea of Thieves was obviously a lot less of a cost to develop, and it wasn't quite as bad as Concord was on release. I mean,
No,
Concord had
it wasn't.
like 15 players, dude. It was just
At
like,
700, all right? Don't throw the disrespect, all
okay,
right?
no, all right, fine. It dropped off to like under 100 in like a day, though. It was, yeah, I just think that's so much worse than anything the industry has seen, to the point where I just don't think you stick with something like that. You know, like I agree with what you're
Yes.
saying, but nothing's ever gone quite that bad. I feel like if Sea of Thieves released, it was that bad, it literally had like sub 100 players after its first day, I don't think they would have given it the light of day. But it was like semi popular and people saw something in it, and that's what made people stick with it. And it was a lot lower of cost of a project as well, in terms of, yeah, just, yeah, being
Well,
funded.
maybe.
So a lot
And I don't know
different.
if we actually have any numbers on that, but yes, I mean you are right. Yeah, it's not like it was a catastrophic failure, and you are right that we all came away from Sea of Thieves like bit bare bones, but like I see it. I
Yeah,
see
it's
it. I
niche,
get it.
it's doing something, where Concord is like,
Yeah,
it's just a copycat and it's a shit one at that, where Sea of Thieves was like, it's doing its own thing, needs a bit more time in the oven, but there's nothing like it, right? So yeah,
interesting, interesting. But even then, still, I think you could make the argument and extend that to the cancelled projects as well, like the Last of Us multiplayer or the Spider-Man multiverse game that was like, how come you didn't even try? I don't know. That it just I know they have to make these decisions internally, and I know they have to go with what they think is going to work and what isn't going to work. And we know the live service genre is such a punishing place to be in terms of like it has to be right. But like but in terms of PlayStation Studios, they're 0 for 3.
yeah,
You know, 3 cancelled projects. Um and maybe more that we haven't heard of. Who knows? And of course, stuff gets cancelled all the time internally, so maybe it's a bit unfair for me to be drawing on something like Spider-Man, which wasn't even officially announced. But
but it's weird that
it
it's weird that you have to take a risk on something, right? But why take the risk on Concord? And can something like Last of Us Online, with an IP will at least be semi-successful, even if even if the game is kind of mid, that game's still going to
yeah,
sell like hotcakes. But they were like, no, that's too much of a risk. We don't want to obviously tarnish the brand. Let's let's put all
yeah,
our chips on Firewalk Studios in Concord. Like,
yeah,
it's just a weird choice for the other things they had to choose from to keep, to go for
yeah,
that.
yeah. And this is, I suppose, they're probably asking themselves this question of like when they first made the decision of like, let's get into some live service, let's give it a go. And we've got this, suite of popular IP, which is, done really well. I reckon once the wheels started turning on that, they started thinking, well, hang on a minute, actually, if this is a big fuck up, this could tarnish or like damage the reputation of the next big single player release of this game. Like
Yeah.
if Last of Us multiplayer comes out and we get ragged for monetization, for battle passes, for not being complete,
Yeah.
and it scores like mid 70s, it's going to take the prestige away from Last of Us, and therefore that could damage the overall franchise revenue.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they got themselves a bit tangled there, where it's like, I guess we just have to go after new IP, in which case we're starting from zero, and
Mm.
suddenly the risk is through the roof again. So yeah,
Weird.
Because like I think about what's next, right? They've got Fair Games, which is the new thing. The only other thing that we know of that they're leaning into with established IP is the Horizon one, and everybody is getting sick of Horizon. You know, like oh my god,
Yeah.
Horizon Remaster, Horizon 2 Remaster, Horizon DLC, Horizon Show, Horizon VR game,
Horizon
Horizon
Lego.
Lego. Um, you know, it's a never ending, and I feel like in a way that will be their like moment because uh, maybe Fair Games comes out first. It probably does. But Horizon should, to me, that when they announced that or we heard about that, that's the one that's like that is a slam dunk. Like The Last of Us multiplayer, I heard about and they're like, I know Naughty Dog are talented enough to pull something off, but I'm struggling to see how you're going to make that work. You know,
Yeah.
um, same with like conceptually, just thinking about a Spider-Man multiverse game, like Insomniac are talented to pull it off, but like I'm struggling to understand how that would work. Give me the elevator pitch for a multiplayer Horizon game, which is like Monster Hunter. Yeah, to get it.
Works. Yeah.
Like I get that. That should be an
Yeah.
absolute slam dunk. And so if they can't get any success out of that, then I really think like they need to be thinking about what's going on. Um like again, I think Gorilla are talented enough that they will be able to at least put out a good game. It might not be industry defining or anything, but I think that it would be good enough to be good. And I think that's going to be the real test, that one, because they're working in an established franchise with an established studio, with an established team, probably established mechanics already. They can probably bring over like a good amount of the assets and the gameplay loop from the single player. And if they still can't get that right, well, then I think they probably need to start asking some questions internally.
Yeah. Yeah. They need to start like really hiring some industry leads that can make these calls for them in terms of live service because clearly the talent they've got is just not it.
Yeah.
They just don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
And I like it's a little bit selfish of me because like in some sense, I hope they have really limited success with live service games. And obviously they've closed down their lead mobile dev here, which tells me actually they're having second thoughts about trying to get extra revenue from mobile teams and
Yeah.
mobile games. So where's this extra revenue coming from? Like, what's this plan? If Xbox is doing the thing where it's trying to reach more gamers everywhere and get revenue that way, PlayStation's plan seems to have been up to this point, for the most part, monetize their current player base more, which I've spoken about before.
Yes. Yeah.
Other than like late PC releases, which so kind of get a bit on the side, double dip maybe. Um, if they're giving up on mobile, if they're failing on the live service front, where else they got to look to get that money? Back to me. You come back to Xbox.
Yeah.
We see God of War releasing on Xbox. We see service. I think if that did happen and they really could not find their footing with live service games after 4 or 5 years, I do genuinely think they would start having conversations about
Hmm.
putting some games on Xbox. I don't think it'd be Lego Horizon's going to Switch.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see it. There's so much money in live service games, to the point where a good live service hit makes like 5 times the money like a God of War makes or a God of War Ragnarok makes or something like that. So um yeah, it's kind of weird. It kind of makes me think why someone hasn't tried to like money hat a studio like for a game that's coming out like Fragpunk, for example, something like that, because that's looking really good. Like I've heard some such positive things about that game. Um, so it really makes you think like why hasn't like that's a good opportunity for Sony to try something there. Like I don't want them to, but what
Mm,
I'm saying is it kind of makes sense to try and get a live service hit under your belt and have some consistent money coming in and something like
mm.
that. It's just, but yeah, you're
I
totally
guess they've
right.
got
If
that with
they,
Helldivers.
yeah, they have got that of Helldivers a little bit, yeah. But no, you are totally right. There's so much money in it that with a few more failures, they're gonna have to start looking elsewhere because, like,
Yeah.
like we've already discussed many times, like as amazing as these games are, like Ragnarok and Horizon, all these games, it's still razor thin profits they're making. Like it's not a lot at all. They're really living on the edge there. So yeah, something has to give.
Yeah, definitely. And like I will like put this out as well to like the PlayStation community. And I know I suppose I don't really like saying this that much because there's always so much to play. Like it really isn't like this whole thing of like where we just list war and talk about like the 4 or 5 exclusive games that come out every year as opposed to the other 300 that come out in the whole year is so annoying and petty to me. But
Mm.
I actually couldn't tell you what the next PlayStation game coming out is. Like I actually don't know. And
Mm.
I am on the pulse with this stuff. My ear is to the ground. Like they haven't had a good timeline slash roadmap in quite some time now. It's probably Death Stranding 2 or Ghost of Yotai, right?
I think it's Ghost of Yotai, yeah, because I think that's coming out like May 25 or like
Mhm.
April, maybe March. Could be March. I don't know. But yeah, it's like
One
it's
of
like
them.
yeah, one of those months in the year, one of the 12. Um but yeah, I think that's coming out before Death Stranding. Um so yeah, Ghost of
Right.
Yotai.
So I don't know how it worked with Ragnarok, but I think I remember Ragnarok performing less well than the first God of War. If I'm remembering correctly, Forbidden West, that's right, isn't it? So the
Yeah.
Horizon sequel performed less well than the first one.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't know about Last of Us 2. I get the feeling maybe Last of Us 2 actually was the inverse and did better. Point being, like, if they continue to see like diminishing returns on these sequels, they're also going to start having problems. God forbid, actually, one of them does like underperforms critically. Like if Ghost of
Yeah.
Yotai comes out and it's like in the 70s. God forbid, like the money combined with some of the live service difficulties they've had, like that would really be a big hit for them. So again, like whoever's running the financials over there at PlayStation, I'm sure is really looking at the numbers with a big monocle. Like
Mm.
this better do well because if it doesn't, we're actually going to be in the red for this year. And then really, they need to start having more conversations about how to put money in different pockets so that they're safer. And then so again, comes back to like selfishly. Yeah, I do want PlayStation to start considering putting their games on other places,
Mm.
or so.
Yeah. Hey, it's not bad to think selfishly sometimes, we all want to consume good products, so
Consume.
consume.
Uh, Rakeen says, "Sorry for not chatting, being playing COD the whole time. Thanks for the background entertainment." I mean, honestly,
It's kind of what a podcast is for, so yeah, I wouldn't worry
I'm
about it.
fine with that.
I feel like it's weird anyone
Background
who just
entertainment.
like sits down and just watches a
Dials
podcast,
into a
just
podcast.
literally like yeah, like the hands on their knees, just leaning forward, just listening intently. It's a bit weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Although you do get like really engaged. Maybe we're just not engaging enough, Tim. Maybe that's the problem. Like we need people like constantly at the keyboard, like typing back to every single thing we
That's
said.
true. We
Maybe
need to
that's
say
what
more
we need.
controversial things. That's what we need to do. More, I
Definitely.
think, throw in
Definitely.
a little bit of racism, maybe some sexist comments. I think will really
Mm,
get the keyboards
absolute.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the
So
prejudice going. Just start putting woke,
yeah,
like just on the thumbnails, just woke, and then
yeah,
we never talk about it. Just put it on the
yeah, yeah,
thumbnails,
yeah.
maybe.
Thanks for the tips, Joaquin. Yeah, we'll definitely be more racist next
Yeah,
episode. Thanks.
we'll do that. We'll do that next episode. Thanks.
What you been
Some good
playing on
advice.
COD though? You been doing the multiplayer, or you been doing the zombies, or you been doing campaign?
He's back in
Strikes.
another game now. He's not gonna. He's not gonna
Yeah,
reply, is
he's
he?
locked in.
He's-
Man's locked in. Um, but
Ooh,
yeah,
all right. I mean, I think that kind of brings it to a close. There was like a couple of other things I wanted to go over, but the show's kind of gone on a bit now, and I want to go play Monster Hunter. I
yeah,
need to
me
pee
too.
as well.
Yeah, I'm done.
So, anything that spirals out of today's news in future weeks, we'll come back to. But it's good to sit down and do like just like a normal episode. Well,
Yeah, and without
hey,
that stinky Caden as well. No one fucking
oh my
needs
god, the
him.
stinky
I can
cadence.
smell him through the camera, man. It's awful. So
So
glad he's
awful.
not here.
So awful. Like, do you know how much YouTube content that kid consumes? Like, it is
In, yeah,
unbelievable.
it's incredible. Like, and he consumes it while playing games 8 hours a day. And then when we all come on for Friday night, he's like, "Sorry, God, not here." Fantastic. Yeah,
I
sorry.
I
I'll play with you at
really
fucking 2:30 in the afternoon next Wednesday. Look forward to it.
I really worry like about the amount of brain rot like he must find it so hard to just sit in silence, like just with himself, or like read a book, or just like I bet he's the sort of person who's like listening to music in one ear, listening to podcasts in another ear, has a video going in front of him, has an ambient like 4K fireplace on another screen, and then on the fifth screen he's playing a game.
And he's got his
Like,
Steam
and
Deck
then he
on
has a
his lap.
Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Ace Rock Ally, like also both going. Like, I really worry about that kid's attention span.
Yeah. And he's doom scrolling TikTok as well. Don't forget that.
Does he do that? Does he?
I don't know. He strikes me as a doom scroller. Maybe on like Instagram or something. I've seen him doom scroll.
So I can see that. Just dialed into his tiny phone, hunched over while he eats his food, like a monkey, picking on it like off a plate.
All right,
Fucking
maybe we should save some of this stuff off air. I think we're going in a little bit too hard right now. I think we both forgot we were live.
He's not going to watch this, is he? He doesn't have to know.
Well, if he does,
I mean, he knows I love him.
Tears,
he knows I love him. This is all fair game. There's nothing I haven't spoken to him about before. Eating KFC off my floor was, a bit of a fuck up, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, 100%.
Refusing to use a plate, Tim. Bit weird.
Yeah, in that moment when he was doing KFC, I would have shot him with a pack-a-punch gun. Like he was a zombie. Like, actually.
Mental. And I especially remember him balancing his phone on his kneecap, like he was, and it was like wobbling left to right while he was like trying to eat.
Which because he
KFC,
jostles
like,
his leg like I do. You know where I can't sit still. I always shake my leg.
Yeah.
He does the same thing, and he's trying to watch a video on that leg, and it's just like, are you not getting seasick right now? Like, you're not getting motion sick. This is awful. Oh,
everything about that memory is like so vivid to me, of like watching him, of him
wake up in
like
cold
no.
sweats in
the
middle of the
I've been
night.
turning to me and be like, I don't want a plate, like while he's eating on my sofa and like dropping oily chicken on my floor, and then him just picking it up and eating it and watching like his phone wobble around on his leg while we're sat at the table talking, and he's just dialed into like his 15th Tekken video of the day. I mean,
yeah, he gave off proper like toddler with an iPad energy there, didn't he? Like, it really wasn't.
I'm sure it was just a one-off. We love Caden.
Totally.
He
totally doesn't do that every evening.
I mean, God, I hope not.
Oh,
he said he's at a Halloween party tonight. Imagine if that's like he's just like drinking rum and coke. Just he's got headphones in, just dialed into like. Dragon Ball Z fucking combos.
Looking up the latest Easter egg for zombies.
Yeah. Yeah. God. Man. All right. Well, we'll bring the show to a close there. Thanks everyone for coming. We look forward to speaking to you again next week. Hopefully, maybe. I think Tim's in the country.
Yeah.
That
I'm
was
here.
So funny. Did you see how the last episode ended?
Yeah.
That was so funny.
No, it just ends.
It's so funny. Anybody who's listening, go back and like listen to just the final 10 seconds of last week's episode.
God,
so funny. For some reason, the stream just cut short, and I said to Tim after he'd just been on his 2-week holiday to Orlando, "Are you like as a joke, like just being a dickhead? Are you in the country next week?" And he there's a pause, and he just goes, "No," and then the stream ends, and then the video just ends.
But yeah, for context, we carried on talking for like 10 more minutes after that. Yeah. But yeah, for whatever reason, I just fucking end the stream. Just fucking click stop.
I'm leaving to get away from you. Actually, like I'm actually leaving the country.
But no, I think I'm here for a little bit. I think yeah, it'll be nice to have a couple weekends, just big chilling. So anything comes up, obviously I'll let you know. But yeah, I think I'm here next week. So we'll see you next week, everyone.
Sweet. We'll see you next week, everyone. Weekend. Lots of love. Have a rocking weekend.
And a good work week.
Have a good spooky weekend. Yeah. Stop putting your Christmas decorations up now.
Yeah. Don't joke till he's actually talked about that. So.
I know we are. That's exactly what we're doing.
Oh, God. Bye, Rob.
Merry Christmas.